Hey Truckers, here is part 20 of Villain Tricks Heroines into Hating the MC. Let's dive into the video. As the tumultuous battle against the colossal Leviathan in the eastern seas came to a close, another significant development was taking place in the northern region. Wang Jian, the enigmatic and powerful ruler of the everlasting mystical empire, had arrived in the northern region with his three women, Yu Yanling, Bishi Shuyan, and Fairy Ji Luan. Wang Jian's journey had been marked by both strategic pursuits and pleasure. The trio of women had accompanied him with a sense of purpose, but also with an underlying understanding of the intimate and passionate moments they would share with their enigmatic ruler. It was a complex dynamic driven by desire and power. Now, in the heart of the northern region, Wang Jian made a calculated decision to discard the flying ship that had carried them to this distant land. They were far from the territory of the everlasting mystical empire, and the ship had served its purpose. This was because it was too conspicuous. Thus, they would have to rely on subtler means of traversing this newfound territory. As they ventured further into the northern region, a sense of excitement and anticipation hung in the air. Bishi Shuyan, renowned for her talent in uncovering hidden treasures, felt a stirring within her. Wang Jian recognized this as the signal to halt and investigate the area for potential riches. He understood the value of these treasures, not only for their immediate worth but also for their potential strategic advantage. However, they found nothing. Wang Jian marked the coordinates of their current location, planning to return when the time was right to unearth these hidden treasures. However, he was well aware of the dangers that might accompany such quests. Instead, he decided to prioritize their primary objective, reaching the sacred territory of the Azure Spirit Lion. This formidable Saint Realm beast, which resided in the forest near the Verzen Empire, held the key to Wang Jian's ambition and cunning plans. Wang Jian and his group of women ventured deeper into the northern region, guided by Wang Jian's intimate knowledge of the territory. Having previously traversed this land, he was well acquainted with its intricacies and challenges. His leadership allowed them to evade patrols of both the Elven Kingdom's forces and the Dwarven race's forces, a noteworthy feat given the unique abilities and artifacts these races possessed. The dwarves were equipped with remarkable artifacts that enabled them to detect the presence of intruders, while the elves, attuned to the forces of nature, could sense disruptions in their surroundings. Yet, these defenses proved inadequate against Wang Jian's prowess. As a Saint Realm expert and a half-devil, his mastery of the shadow element was unrivaled. He concealed his presence and that of his three women with remarkable proficiency, allowing them to glide through the forest, undetected and unchallenged. Thoughts of his past experiences in the northern region crossed Wang Jian's mind as he led his group onward. Conversations flowed among the group as they moved, their voices hushed and attentive. Wang Jian's women, Yu Yanling, Bishi Shuyan, and Fairy Ji Luan, were acutely aware of the nuances of their mission. The air was charged with a sense of anticipation, a feeling that came naturally when embarking on an expedition into uncharted territory. They advanced through the forest, their footsteps softened by Wang Jian's adept concealment techniques. As they neared their destination, the group's thoughts turned toward the imminent encounter with the Azure Spirit Lion. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as though acknowledging the significance of the moment. With each step, Wang Jian and his companions drew closer to the elusive beast they sought. The dense canopy of the northern region's ancient woods enveloped them, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. "Wang Jian, you have come." The voice reverberated through the forest, rich with enthusiasm. "I have been looking forward to this day." The/W novel chapters are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. With calm and measured steps, Wang Jian led the way, his women following in his wake. Their entrance into the territory was met with a sense of reverence from the ancient beasts that resided there. These creatures, denizens of the forest and subjects of the Azure Spirit Lion, paid their respects to Wang Jian and his entourage, ensuring their comfort and well-being. Meanwhile, Wang Jian and the Azure Spirit Lion engaged in a deep and thoughtful conversation, their words carrying the weight of their shared concerns. Wang Jian's demeanor remained composed, his half-devil nature endowing him with an air of confidence. The Azure Spirit Lion wasted no time in broaching the issue at hand, making it clear that he sought Wang Jian's assistance. Wang Jian, our forest has been in turmoil since the arrival of the elven race, the lion began, his tone tinged with a hint of frustration. The balance that once existed among the human race, the beast race, and the dwarven race has been disrupted. The elven race's expansion threatens to encroach upon our territory, and if left unchecked, it will lead to dire consequences. Wang Jian nodded thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting his understanding. I see the predicament you face, he responded. The elven race's actions are indeed cause for concern. Their encroachment into your domain threatens the harmony of the entire northern region. What assistance do you require from me? The Azure Spirit Lion's voice grew more earnest as he explained, I need your expertise and strength to help safeguard our territory from the encroachment of the elven race. We must find a way to restore the balance and ensure the survival of the diverse races that call this region home. Wang Jian smirked, a glint of determination in his eyes. You can count on my assistance, he assured the Azure Spirit Lion. What we need is a unified front to address this challenge, Wang Jian suggested. One solution could be forming an alliance with the humans of the Verzen Empire. They have their interests in maintaining peace and balance in the northern region as well. The Azure Spirit Lion, a wise and thoughtful being, took a moment to consider the proposal. He understood the significance of such an alliance, but the question of whether the Verzen Empire would be open to such cooperation lingered in his mind. With a confident smile, Wang Jian addressed the lion's concerns. I can assure you that the Empress of the Verzen Empire, Isabella, is not only open to such alliances but also holds a personal connection with me, he revealed. The Azure Spirit Lion's amber eyes held a mix of curiosity and approval. A personal connection with the Empress? He inquired. Wang Jian nodded, sharing this revelation. Yes, Isabella is not only the ruler of the Verzen Empire, she is also my lover. Our bond extends beyond mere politics. With her support, we can forge a strong alliance to protect the interests of all races in the northern region. The Azure Spirit Lion considered Wang Jian's words, recognizing the significance of this partnership. It seems you have the means to bring about this alliance, he acknowledged. I will place my trust in your leadership and your connections. Let us proceed with this plan. Wang Jian extended his hand to seal their agreement. I will contact Isabella, and we can commence discussions on this alliance. As the conversation continued, Wang Jian unveiled another astonishing revelation. I possess a unique ability, Wang Jian began, which allows me to strengthen and purify the bloodline of all the beasts residing in this forest. The Azure Spirit Lion's eyes widened with astonishment at this revelation. He had expected Wang Jian to offer help and support, but this was beyond his wildest expectations. Strengthen and purify the bloodline of all the forest's beasts, he echoed, incredulous. Wang Jian nodded, a hint of pride in his voice. Indeed. The benefits are not limited to bloodline enhancement alone. I can also aid in the cultivation of these beings, including your own cultivation. For the Azure Spirit Lion, this was more than just a pleasant surprise. It was a revelation that held the potential to change the course of the lives of all the forest's inhabitants. He spoke cautiously, his voice laced with amazement. To enhance the bloodline and cultivation of the creatures in the forest is impressive, but to claim that you can strengthen my own cultivation, even at the 4th stage of the Saint Realm, is astounding. Wang Jian nodded with an air of quiet confidence. Yes, I can indeed aid in advancing your cultivation to even higher stages of the Saint Realm. With your noble lineage, the potential for growth is limitless. The Azure Spirit Lion pondered this offer. He was well aware of the arduous path that Saint Realm beasts had to traverse to attain higher stages. The accumulation of Saint energy and the refinement of Saint light were challenges that demanded intense effort and time. Wang Jian's proposal, however, promised to accelerate this process. The idea of expanding his strength and reaching higher realms was enticing, but the lion had reservations. I have a deep reverence for the traditions of cultivation, he mused. Are these methods in harmony with our natural and time-honored ways? Wang Jian understood the importance of respecting the traditional methods of cultivation and the bond between a beast and its environment. He reassured the Azure Spirit Lion with sincerity, "Rest assured, these methods do not disrupt the natural order. They simply serve as catalysts to unlock the latent potential within." The Azure Spirit Lion contemplated Wang Jian's words, weighing the potential benefits against the sacred traditions of the forest. The decision was not one to be taken lightly. With the fate of the northern region at stake, the path they chose would shape the future of their realms. After a thoughtful pause, the lion spoke, his voice carrying the weight of their choices. "If your methods do not harm our sacred traditions and can truly strengthen our kind and allies, then I am willing to embrace your assistance." "Okay. However, I do have a condition before we start this method," Wang Jian spoke with a sly smile that seemed fitting on a devil. Wang Jian leaned in, his voice a low and conspiratorial whisper. "I ask that you form an alliance with me and pledge to follow my commands. In return, I shall raise your cultivation to the very pinnacle of the Saint Realm and enhance the quality of your bloodline." The Azure Spirit Lion's golden eyes widened slightly, taken aback by the audacity of Wang Jian's request. The promise of ascending to the peak of the Saint Realm and improving his bloodline was an enticing proposition. But it also came with a price. The lion would have to yield to Wang Jian's authority. The lion paused, contemplating the offer. He knew the stakes were high, and the implications of this decision would reverberate throughout the forest. Yet, as he observed Wang Jian's presence, he was struck by the realization that this human had ascended to the Saint Realm within a remarkably brief span. The mere existence of such an individual, wielding power that defied all expectations, intrigued the Azure Spirit Lion. It convinced him that Wang Jian held secrets and abilities beyond their comprehension. With a deep breath, the Azure Spirit Lion nodded in agreement. "Very well, I accept your condition. We shall form an alliance, and I shall heed your commands. In return, I expect you to fulfill your promise to the utmost." Wang Jian's smirk widened as he received the lion's approval. "Excellent. Now, I need you to gather all the beasts in this forest. We're going to begin this transformation together." Wang Jian stood amidst a throng of beasts, a sly smile playing on his lips. With a wave of his hand, he activated his unique ability to check the soul boards of every creature present. He perused the information at his disposal, assessing their strengths and weaknesses. With a calculated strategy, he began the transformation process. Assigning soul points to increase their cultivation realm, he elevated their capabilities across the board. Cultivation realm, he allocated soul points to elevate their cultivation realm, pushing them to new heights. Bloodline purification, the impurities in their bloodlines were cleansed and replaced with newfound vitality. Abilities amplification, their natural abilities were boosted, making them more resilient and versatile. Elemental affinity, their connection to the elements was strengthened, granting them greater mastery over their elemental powers. Spiritual empowerment, their spirits were fortified, enhancing their mental resilience and focus. Physical enhancement, their bodies became sturdier and more resilient, enabling them to withstand greater challenges. The Azure Spirit Lion itself underwent a monumental transformation. As the process unfolded, a new aura enveloped it, signifying its ascent to greater heights. The lion felt the surge of power coursing through its veins, invigorating every fiber of its being. Ariad updated s-tirise at n//vel/bin.com. Wang Jian orchestrated this metamorphosis with precision, enhancing the potential of every creature in the forest. It was a transformation that would not only benefit the beasts themselves but also solidify their bond with their new ally, Wang Jian, the half-devil Saint Realm expert. As the last of the changes took hold, Wang Jian stepped back, his sly smile now one of satisfaction. With the forest teeming with newfound vitality, Wang Jian selected a representative from the beasts. This delegate would serve as the ambassador to the Verzen Empire and pave the way for the alliance he had envisioned. One beast, chosen for its wisdom and communication skills, stepped forward to take on this vital role. As Wang Jian and his chosen emissary embarked on the journey to the Verzen Empire, the vibrant energy of the strengthened beasts echoed behind them, a reminder of the powerful force they now commanded. His 4 women, Yu Yanling, Xiao Ling, Bishi Shuyan, and Fairy Ji Luan, accompanied him on this venture. Their previous intimate moments and escapades in the forest were temporarily set aside as they focused on the diplomatic mission ahead. Their journey to the Verzen Empire was not without its challenges. They navigated through the densely wooded regions, encountering diverse landscapes and wildlife. Along the way, the conversation between Wang Jian and his women was a mix of anticipation and strategy. Once we reach the Verzen Empire, we'll meet with Isabella, Wang Jian began, setting the tone for their discussions. Remember, she's the empress there, but I have a good relationship with her, so you all don't need to be worried too much. Yu Yanling spoke up, but this is a matter between entire nations? Her people might not easily accept this alliance with the beast race. Wang Jian flashed a confident grin. She is not a dumb woman who will let that get in the way of her thinking. She's aware of the potential benefits of such an alliance, and I'm sure she'll be receptive. Xiao Ling, who possessed keen intuition, offered her thoughts. If the Empress has any concerns or requests, we should be ready to address them. Bishi Shuyan, known for her resourcefulness, chimed in, "It will be wonderful if the alliance happens. Our empire will have its influence even in the northern states. It wouldn't be any exaggeration to call our empire the most dominating nation of the continent." Fairy Ji Luan added, I will make sure to construct the teleportation array so that the movement between the kingdoms and the great sects is quicker." Wang Jian nodded in agreement with their insights. Good. Remember, after this incident, we will have the strength of powerful beasts and another powerful empire. Wang Jian, now accompanied by the delegate from the strengthened beasts, arrived at the Verzen Empire, the heart of human civilization. As they entered the empire's magnificent capital, they were granted an audience with the Empress, Isabella, and the esteemed council members. Isabella's love for Wang Jian was a well-guarded secret, known only to the two of them. Her feelings for him ran deep, and she was willing to go to great lengths to ensure his happiness. As the council members took their seats, Isabella's gaze remained fixed on Wang Jian, filled with unbridled affection. Wang Jian, keenly aware of the diplomatic complexities that lay ahead, approached the matter with eloquence. With the council members' eyes and ears focused on him, he addressed the gathering in a confident and casual tone, seeking to build a compelling case for the alliance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I stand before you as the Emperor of the everlasting mystical empire, a close ally to the Verzen Empire. Today, we bring forth a proposition that will not only fortify the bonds between our two great nations but also ensure the continued prosperity and safety of our people." Wang Jian's words were measured and persuasive, delivered with the finesse of a seasoned diplomat. He continued, "In the ever-evolving landscape of our continent, we face new challenges. The Elven race and Dwarven race have formed a formidable alliance, and their influence in the northern states has grown significantly." Wang Jian's keen sense of strategy was evident as he made his case. "In light of these circumstances, it is imperative that we, the humans, seek powerful allies to maintain our strength and ensure a peaceful coexistence. An alliance with the beast race in the northern region is not just an opportunity, it is a necessity." The council members listened intently, nodding at Wang Jian's rationale. His words resonated with their concerns, and they began to see the urgency of the situation. Isabella, her love for Wang Jian shining through her eyes, allowed the council members to engage in the discussion, their questions and concerns brought to the forefront. The room buzzed with conversation, and council members debated the merits of forming an alliance with the beast race. Wang Jian, in his element, addressed each question with patience and wisdom. His responses were measured and convincing, earning the council's respect and trust. He emphasized the benefits of uniting with the beast race, highlighting the complementary strengths they offered to counterbalance the elven and dwarven alliance. Amid the debates and discussions, Isabella remained silent, her gaze fixed on Wang Jian, unwavering in her support. Finally, when the last council member had posed their question and received a satisfying answer, Isabella spoke, her voice carrying the weight of her position as empress. I have heard the arguments and deliberations. It is clear that an alliance with the beast race is in our best interest. I wholeheartedly support this alliance. With the Empress's endorsement, the decision was sealed. The alliance between the Verzen Empire and the beast race was set in motion, marking a significant shift in the balance of power on the continent. The council members, recognizing the wisdom of the Empress's decision and the sound arguments presented by Wang Jian, cast their votes in favor of the alliance. As the council meeting concluded, Isabella and Wang Jian exchanged a knowing glance, the depth of their connection clear to those who understood the unspoken language of love. The alliance, forged through diplomacy and strategic thinking, held the promise of a brighter future for both nations. Soon after the council meeting disbanded, Wang Jian went to Isabella's chamber to meet her. As the door to Isabella's private chambers closed behind them, the air grew thick with anticipation. Wang Jian's eyes glittered with a sinister gleam, and his sly grin widened as he approached Isabella, who sat by the grand window, her every move exuding an alluring grace. Well, my dear Empress, Wang Jian purred, his voice laced with a wicked allure, it seems we've achieved the alliance. Your council members played right into my hands, just as you knew they would. He circled Isabella like a predator, his every step calculated to provoke. Isabella's gaze met his, a mixture of affection and intrigue in her eyes. Of course, my love, she whispered, her voice husky with desire, you have a way of bending people to your will. It's one of the many things I find irresistible about you. Wang Jian chuckled, his laughter dripping with malevolence. I've always had a knack for getting what I want, he mused. Now, as for our little alliance with the beast race, they're at our mercy. And with your empire and my everlasting mystical empire united, we'll have power like never before. Isabella, her love for Wang Jian blinding her to his darker intentions, nodded eagerly. Yes, my emperor. Together, we'll dominate the continent, and no one will dare oppose us. Wang Jian's eyes glinted with cruel delight. That's right, my dear Empress. And today, I intend to conquer you. With those words, he lunged towards Isabella, his intentions as sinister as the night. As Wang Jian's hands found Isabella's delicate shoulders, a sly grin spread across his face like a shadowy veil. His touch was possessive, fingers trailing sensually down her arms, leaving a tantalizing shiver in their wake. Isabella's breath quickened, her eyes locking onto his with a mixture of desire and submission. She knew the depths of Wang Jian's cunning and ambition, but in her devotion to him, it was a darkness she welcomed, even craved. His intentions might be sinister, but they ignited a fire within her, a fire she couldn't resist. With a swift and masterful movement, Wang Jian swept Isabella off her feet, carrying her to the ornate bed at the center of the room. His strength was both commanding and seductive, an embodiment of his unquenchable thirst for power and pleasure. As they tumbled onto the silken sheets, their mouths locked in a passionate embrace. Wang Jian's kiss was demanding, fueled by his desire to conquer, to dominate. His lips tasted of victory, and Isabella's surrender was an intoxicating elixir. His hands roamed, exploring every inch of her body, marking her as his own. Isabella arched her back, her surrender evident in the curves of her form. There was a devilish hunger in Wang Jian's eyes as he stripped away the layers that separated them, exposing her to his dark desires. With a predatory grace, he descended upon her, exploring her with a thoroughness that left no corner untouched. Isabella's moans filled the room, a symphony of pleasure and submission. Her hands clawed at his back, nails digging into his flesh, urging him to continue. Wang Jian reveled in the control he wielded, his every movement calculated to elicit pleasure. His tongue traced a path of fire along Isabella's skin, igniting her senses with a sinister sweetness. His every caress, every kiss, was a testament to his mastery over her. As the intensity of their passion built, Wang Jian's voice was a dark whisper against Isabella's ear. "You are mine, Isabella, body and soul. Your empire, your counsel, they all fall beneath my dominion. This is because you, the empress of this empire, completely belong to me." Isabella's response was an unspoken surrender, her body quivering with ecstasy. Her hands clutched at the sheets, and her breath came in shallow gasps. The room, once a place of power and diplomacy, was now a battleground of pleasure and submission. Wang Jian's sinister prowess was undeniable, each move he made pushing Isabella to new heights of ecstasy. As she reached the peak of her desire, a cry of pleasure tore from her lips, a tribute to the conquest she had willingly surrendered to. Wang Jian's own release was a culmination of power and pleasure. A sly grin still played on Wang Jian's lips as he whispered in a voice thick with seduction, "Round 1, my dearest empress. But as you well know, I'm not one to stop at just one victory." His fingers traced the contours of her body, igniting trails of pleasure in their wake. Isabella's dark eyes bore into his, a mixture of affection and longing. "You have a way of making me crave your dominance," she admitted with a husky voice, a sign of her insatiable desire. Wang Jian's laughter held a sinister edge as he leaned in to claim her lips once more. The kiss was a testament to his insatiable appetite, a declaration of his conquest over the empress of the Verzen Empire. His kiss was demanding, possessive, and laced with the taste of victory. Their entwined bodies writhed on the silken sheets, a battlefield of pleasure and submission. Isabella surrendered willingly, her hands clutching at his back, urging him to continue. Each movement, each caress, was a testament to Wang Jian's mastery over her. With an unquenchable hunger for power and pleasure, Wang Jian continued to dominate Isabella, leaving no doubt about his sinister intentions. His eyes, once filled with cruel delight, now bore into hers with a possessive intensity. LL News Tirais at N0V/LBI/.cm. Isabella's desire matched his, an unyielding fire that ignited each time their bodies met. Wang Jian's touch was relentless, guiding her toward a realm of pleasure she had never known. His whispered words dripped with sinister charm, branding her soul with the knowledge of her submission. The room was no longer a sanctuary of diplomacy, it was a temple of decadence, where their bodies intertwined with a fierce determination. Each gasp, each moan, was a testament to the unbreakable bond Wang Jian had forged. The empress was no longer a ruler, she was a captive to his desires. As they reached the zenith of their passion, their cries of ecstasy echoed through the room, a symphony of submission and dominance. Wang Jian reveled in his control, pushing the boundaries of pleasure and power. Their encounter was a relentless dance, a battle of wills and desires that showed no sign of waning. Wang Jian's sinister charisma held her captive, his touch a brand of ownership. Round after round, they indulged in the darkness of their desires. Wang Jian's laughter, laced with wicked satisfaction, filled the room as they continued to explore the depths of their lust. Isabella, once the empress of the Verzen Empire, had willingly surrendered to a power greater than her throne. She had become a captive to Wang Jian's sly and sinister dominion, a willing victim to his insatiable conquest. The next day arrived as swiftly as their passion had ignited. The sun's rays streamed through the curtains, painting the room in hues of gold. Wang Jian and Isabella, their desires sated for the moment, decided to share a bath. It was a rare moment of intimacy and vulnerability amidst the empire's grandeur. As they stood in the bathing chamber, Isabella, the empress of the Verzen Empire, took the initiative to wash Wang Jian's body. It was an act that defied the conventions of her position, an act no one in her empire could ever fathom. But for her, it was a testament to the depth of her submission, to the sly and sinister allure that Wang Jian held over her. Her gentle hands moved over his skin, her fingers tracing invisible patterns. The warm water cascaded over them, cleansing not only their bodies but also their souls. Isabella couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment, knowing that she had willingly surrendered to this man, a man who held her in a dominion of pleasure and power. As she washed his back, her fingers brushed over his skin with a tenderness that contrasted with the dominance of the previous night. She couldn't suppress a sly smile that tugged at her lips, a testament to the delicious secrets they shared. The quiet moments of shared intimacy were a stark juxtaposition to the lives they led outside this chamber. Isabella, in her public role as empress, commanded the respect and admiration of her subjects. Yet here, she was simply Wang Jian's obedient consort, captivated by his sly charisma. As the water continued to flow, Isabella couldn't resist the urge to inquire about a subject that had long intrigued her. "My dear, what of my master, Victoria?" Her voice was laced with curiosity. Wang Jian, reclining in the bath with a sly smile, looked at Isabella with an almost mischievous glint in his eyes. "Ah, Victoria," he began, his tone filled with knowing satisfaction. "She, too, fell under my spell. Now, she oversees a region of my empire, managing it with unwavering loyalty." Isabella's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and admiration in her gaze. The bond Wang Jian had established with her master was a testament to his influence and charm. In the heart of the Verzen Empire, it was a secret known only to the two of them. After their bath, Wang Jian and Isabella dressed in silence, their minds filled with thoughts of the future. The weight of their positions and the diplomatic decisions they had made still lingered, but it was clear that another matter occupied Wang Jian's thoughts. As they settled into their clothes, Wang Jian cast a calculating look at Isabella. His expression was sly and determined, the dark wheels of his mind turning. "Isabella," he began, "once the teleportation array connecting our empires is completed, it will be time to set our plans in motion." Isabella's gaze met his, and she nodded in understanding. She knew well what plans Wang Jian was referring to. "We are about to embark on a significant endeavor," Wang Jian continued, his tone laced with anticipation. "We shall make our move against the dwarven and elven races." Isabella's eyes widened at the audacious plan. She was well aware of the rivalry between their nations and these two powerful races, but the scale of the impending conflict was daunting. "Are you certain, my love?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Initiating a war against the elven race is no small feat. They possess formidable magic and vast forests that have repelled countless invasions." Wang Jian's sly smile remained unwavering. "I am aware of the challenges, my dear Empress. But I have a plan that involves infiltrating the heart of the elven forest to accomplish our objectives. It is a daring move, but a necessary one." He leaned closer, the sly glint in his eyes intensifying. "We will form an alliance between the Verzen Empire, the everlasting mystical empire, and the beast race of the northern region. On the other side, we shall face the combined might of the dwarven and elven races." Isabella couldn't help but admire Wang Jian's audacity and cunning. It was a sly and sinister strategy, one that would redefine the balance of power on the continent. As Wang Jian and Isabella made preparations for the impending conflict with the elven and dwarven races, the palace of the Verzen Empire buzzed with activity. Their war council was a gathering of distinguished generals and council members, all with a sense of anticipation and tension. Wang Jian and Isabella addressed the assembly, standing side by side as a united front, their bond clear to anyone who saw them. Isabella, the Empress of the Verzen Empire, now stood not just as a ruler but as the partner of a man who held considerable power and influence. General Marcus, a seasoned warrior with a grizzled beard, spoke up first, his voice a deep rumble. "We are honored to have the support of the everlasting mystical empire and the beast race for this alliance. Together, we can finally tip the scales against the elven and dwarven races." Counselor Eleanor, a shrewd woman known for her keen political mind, nodded in agreement. "Our alliance sends a powerful message that we are no longer to be underestimated. We must ensure the success of this endeavor." Wang Jian stepped forward, his sly smile never leaving his lips. "This alliance is our path to victory." General Tyrell, a battle-hardened leader known for his tactical genius, had a question. "What will be the role of the everlasting mystical empire and the beast race in this operation?" Wang Jian answered, "The everlasting mystical empire will provide strategic support and set up arrays, as well as provide resources. The beast race will bolster our ranks with their formidable warriors and knowledge of the northern region." Isabella chimed in, her voice carrying a regal tone. "We have prepared our forces and resources for this alliance. The Verzen Empire will supply our formidable troops and lend our artifacts along with resources. Together, we will form an unstoppable coalition." As they continued their discussions and planned their strategies, it became evident that the generals and council members of the Verzen Empire acknowledged the strength of the bond between Isabella and Wang Jian. They noticed how he commanded her respect and consideration, not just as her lover but as a ruler of equal stature. Counselor Eleanor's voice held a note of respect as she addressed Wang Jian. "Your wisdom and power are evident, Emperor Wang Jian. We are grateful for your assistance in forging this alliance." General Marcus added, "We may have been adversaries, but today, we stand as allies. The everlasting mystical empire has shown us respect and support, and we reciprocate in kind." Visit novilbin.c/m for the L-test updates. Isabella, still beside Wang Jian, offered her own thoughts. "It is my privilege to have formed this alliance. Together, we shall emerge victorious." Their council was one of cooperation and unity, a testament to the intricate web of relationships that defined this alliance. Wang Jian's sly influence had extended beyond the limits of his empire, infiltrating the highest echelons of Verzen's power. "Now, we need a plan to first deal with the dwarven race's artifacts. Is there anyone with good ideas?" Wang Jian asked curiously. The war room fell into a deep silence as the weight of Wang Jian's question hung in the air. The dwarven race's artifacts posed a formidable challenge, and no one in the room had a solution to counter them. The devices were locked safely within the dwarven race's immortal dominion, inaccessible to their enemies. The council members and generals exchanged anxious glances. They knew that going up against the fortified elven race, armed with the dwarven artifacts, would be an uphill battle, if not an impossible one. It was Wang Jian's sly smile that cut through the apprehension in the room. "Well, I do have a plan to deal with the dwarven race's artifacts." His eyes twinkled with clever mischief, and the room leaned in to listen. Wang Jian began to explain the critical weakness he had identified in the dwarven artifacts. "You see, these artifacts of the dwarven race are susceptible to devil chi. They're like oil to a fire when faced with devil chi." The revelation sparked a glimmer of hope in the war room. The generals and council members exchanged eager looks. Wang Jian's clever insight presented a way forward, a chink in the formidable armor of the dwarven and elven alliance. Wang Jian continued, "If we can supply our soldiers with devil chi artifacts and set up devil-killing arrays, we can not only counter the dwarven artifacts but also gain an upper hand in the battle. With these arrays and artifacts, we can cause substantial damage to the unsuspecting dwarven and elven forces." The prospect of a strategic advantage bolstered the spirits in the room, and eyes turned to Wang Jian, who had ignited a spark of hope. But a new question emerged. How could they amass the vast number of devil chi artifacts and set up the devil-killing arrays? The sheer quantity required was staggering, and the associated costs seemed astronomical. Wang Jian, always the sly tactician, had an answer for that as well. "Leave that part to me," he said with confidence. He explained that within his everlasting mystical empire, 2 of the 4 great devil clans resided, the Nether Curseweaver Devil Clan and the Blue Moon Eclipse Devil Clan. These clans had mastered the cultivation of devil chi and possessed the necessary artifacts and knowledge to create the devil-killing arrays. The council members and generals exchanged glances, their concerns alleviated by Wang Jian's assurance. With access to the resources and expertise of the devil clans, they could fortify their forces and prepare for the impending war. General Tyrell, known for his strategic mind, spoke up. "We will have the element of surprise on our side. The dwarven and elven races will not anticipate our ability to counter their artifacts." Wang Jian nodded in agreement. "Yes, that will be our advantage. But remember, we must act swiftly and with precision. Our preparations should remain discreet until we're ready for our strike." The room was alive with renewed determination. Together, they would harness the power of devil chi and confront the formidable alliance between the dwarven and elven races. Wang Jian's clever strategy had ignited a spark of hope that would fuel their preparations for the impending war. After the war council had dispersed, Wang Jian returned to his chamber. It was a spacious, opulent room that exuded an air of luxury. The chamber was adorned with rich silks, plush cushions, and exquisite artwork, but it was the presence of the 4 women who awaited him that truly made it come alive. Xiao Ling, Bishi Shuyan, Fairy Ji Luan, and Yu Yanling, his loyal and alluring companions, were gathered in the chamber. Their eyes sparkled with anticipation as Wang Jian entered, and he couldn't help but smile at their eagerness. He moved toward them, a seductive glint in his eyes. His embrace enveloped each of the women in turn, his hands caressing their soft skin. The chamber became the very core of depravity, a place where their deepest desires were explored and indulged. As the night deepened, their laughter, whispers, and moans filled the room, creating a symphony of passion. Preparations for the impending war with the combined army of the dwarven and elven races were in full swing. Wang Jian, the mastermind behind the operation, oversaw every detail with meticulous precision. The War Council convened regularly to strategize and fine-tune their approach. In the midst of these preparations, Fairy Ji Luan's success in setting up the teleportation array was a game-changer. The connection between the Verzen Empire and the everlasting mystical empire had been established. This connection opened a gateway to an influx of resources and manpower from the everlasting mystical empire. The teleportation array now served as a lifeline that would enable Wang Jian to access the vast reserves of his empire, bringing King Realm and Emperor Realm experts to bolster their ranks. The first to arrive were many King Realm experts, each with their unique specialties and abilities. They brought with them an arsenal of devil artifacts, devil formations, and demonic resources required to set up the critical devil-killing arrays. Their arrival marked a significant turning point in the preparations for the impending war. The combined strength of the Verzen Empire, the everlasting mystical empire, and the support of the powerful devil clans created a formidable force that inspired hope and determination. Together, they were determined to take on the combined might of the dwarven and elven races, and they believed they had the cunning strategy, resources, and manpower to achieve victory. As preparations for the imminent war surged forward, Wang Jian took a break from the War Council and headed to a quiet part of the forest. His destination was the domain of the Azure Spirit Lion, where he found the majestic beast overseeing the training of the other creatures in the forest. The lion, its sleek fur glistening in the sunlight, turned its piercing golden eyes toward Wang Jian. It let out a deep rumble of acknowledgement, a sign of their established alliance. Wang Jian, his voice carrying the gravity of the impending conflict, spoke to the noble creature. Azure Spirit Lion, I have come to inform you of a great battle that looms on the horizon. We are preparing to face the combined forces of the elven and dwarven races. The lion's eyes narrowed in understanding, and it let out a deep, rumbling growl, indicating its readiness to stand by Wang Jian's side. Wang Jian continued, Your strength and the unity of the northern beast race will play a crucial role in this conflict. We need your guidance and power to face this formidable challenge. The Azure Spirit Lion dipped its head in agreement, a silent affirmation of its commitment to the alliance. With a nod, Wang Jian departed from the forest, confident in the Azure Spirit Lion's unwavering support. After months of meticulous preparations and relentless anticipation, the war was finally upon them. The Verzen Empire's forces, fueled by their alliance with the everlasting mystical empire and the strengthened northern beast race, made their move. The initial strike targeted the heart of the dwarven race's wealth and power, their mines of rare resources. Wang Jian's cunning strategy aimed to disrupt the flow of resources that fueled the dwarven race's formidable artifacts. The Verzen Empire's forces descended upon the mines with precision and determination. As the battle erupted in the mines, it didn't take long for the elven race to join the fray. The dwarven race's swift call for reinforcements had summoned their powerful allies, resulting in a rapid escalation of the conflict. Elven archers, known for their impeccable marksmanship, emerged from the shadows of the enchanted forests. Their deadly arrows rained down upon the Verzen Empire's forces, testing the resilience and determination of the human soldiers. In the midst of it all, Wang Jian's cunning plans, bolstered by the influx of devil artifacts and devil formations from the everlasting mystical empire, were set into motion. The devil-killing arrays began to take shape, their dark and intricate patterns etched into the battlefield. These arrays served as a countermeasure against the dwarven race's formidable artifacts, effectively disrupting their magical and technological advantages. The power of the Devil Chi was harnessed to penetrate the defenses of the dwarven race's creations, causing confusion and damage among their ranks. Wang Jian, at the forefront of the battle, observed the chaos unfolding around him. As the war escalated, Wang Jian issued a decisive order to his warriors from the everlasting mystical empire. They were to reinforce the Verzen Empire and push back the combined forces of the elven and dwarven races. Their objective was to target the earth veins, the lifeblood of the immortal dominion of the dwarven race, and cut off their source of power and resources. The dwarven race had fortified the area around their earth veins with an array of formidable defenses and weapons, relying on their technological prowess. However, the devil artifacts and devil-killing arrays proved to be their undoing. The devil energy was their bane, systematically dismantling the dwarven defenses and rendering their technology useless. As the dwarven race faced mounting losses and their formidable defenses crumbled, the elven race had no choice but to send in additional support to balance the scales of the war. Wang Jian had also issued a special order to his soldiers, one that held a distinct purpose. Their mission was to capture any high-ranking elf that appeared on the battlefield. Ariad updated stirise at n/vel/bin.com. If successful, it would open the door for negotiations with the Elf Queen, a potential avenue for acquiring the coveted Fountain of Essence. The capture of a high-ranking elf would be a significant bargaining chip, one that could sway the tide of the war in their favor. In the midst of the chaos and carnage, the soldiers of the everlasting mystical empire executed their orders with precision and determination. As the battle raged on, Wang Jian and his forces kept a keen eye out for any signs of high-ranking elves. Yet, to their dismay, it appeared that the elven race was employing a clever communication strategy. High above the chaos of the battlefield, they utilized strange and ancient talismans to maintain contact with their superiors. This tactic made it challenging to capture the elusive high-ranking elves who were the key to their negotiation strategy. Wang Jian couldn't help but release a frustrated sigh. Their initial plan to capture a high-ranking elf seemed to be failing, leaving them with no choice but to adapt. And adapt they did. With a sly grin, Wang Jian issued a sudden order to the northern beast race. They were to initiate an all-out assault and lay siege to the Divine Tree Elven Dominion. This bold move sent shockwaves through the elven ranks. The beasts weren't just attacking the elves, they were targeting the very earth veins that powered the Divine Tree Elven Dominion. This unexpected turn of events put the elven race in a precarious situation. They had to make a difficult decision. Either they would need to abandon the dwarven race's immortal dominion and focus on defending their own, or their high-ranking members would have to emerge from the safety of the elven dominion to protect their vital earth veins from the relentless onslaught of the beast race. For Wang Jian, either choice held promise. The former would enable him to take control of the dwarven race's immortal dominion, securing more resources for his cause. The latter would offer an opportunity to capture a high-ranking member of the elven race, giving them a valuable bargaining chip in the negotiation for the Fountain of Essence. As the elven high-ranking members emerged from the safety of their domain, Wang Jian's eyes gleamed with anticipation. The next phase of their intricate plan was set in motion. The emergence of the high-ranking elves signaled a turning point in the battle. With grace and precision, they unleashed their powerful and strange abilities, tapping into the primal forces of nature. The forest came alive as the elves channeled the very essence of their realm. Vines shot from the earth, ensnaring beast race warriors, while gusts of wind howled through the treetops, blowing back their assailants. Shafts of sunlight intensified to searing beams, scorching those who dared to approach. A high-ranking elf with emerald eyes and a crown of leaves raised her arms to the sky. In response, the trees themselves joined the fray, their massive limbs swatting away the encroaching beast race like mere insects. Another elf, bearing a staff entwined with vines, called forth torrents of water that crashed down upon the invaders in a relentless downpour. Their advanced control over the elemental forces was a sight to behold. But the beast race was no pushover. They countered with their own powerful abilities, brute strength, and coordinated tactics. Enraged beasts with fur bristling like thorns clashed head-on with the elves, their innate fury an overwhelming force to be reckoned with. The battle was a mesmerizing spectacle, a dance of nature and savagery. In the midst of the chaotic battle, Wang Jian, with his cunning and mastery of stealth, materialized next to the youngest high-ranking elf. She wore a crown of leaves, marking her as the eldest princess of the Elf Queen, and her power had reached the pinnacle of the Emperor realm. With swift and calculated precision, Wang Jian struck her neck, rendering her unconscious. The astonished elves nearby watched in horror as their princess was abducted before their eyes. Wang Jian, clutching the limp form of the elven princess, activated his shadow abilities, vanishing from sight. The elves were left in a state of shock, their anger and anxiety palpable in their voices and expressions. What just happened? Did that human just kidnap our princess? One elf exclaimed, disbelief and fear etched across their face. We need to inform the queen immediately. This is an outrage, another cried out. The news of the abduction spread like wildfire through the elven forces, inciting anger and panic. The battle with the beast race was temporarily forgotten as the elves rallied to rescue their beloved princess. As Wang Jian made his swift escape with the unconscious eldest princess of the Elven Kingdom, chaos erupted among the elven forces. A mysterious power surged through their attacks, infusing them with an otherworldly energy that struck terror into the hearts of the creatures assaulting the elven race's earth veins. The very earth seemed to rebel, and the beasts facing these enhanced elven assaults wondered if they were facing the wrath of nature itself. Wang Jian remained undeterred as he was aware that this unusual power had to be limited or else the elves would have utilized it from the start. He sent a mental command to the beasts to hold on until the effect of this mysterious energy wanes. Meanwhile, some of the elves swiftly relayed the news to the Elven Queen, revealing the abduction of her beloved daughter, the eldest Princess Selena. Upon receiving this shocking information, the Queen's expression shifted from one of worry to fierce determination. Closing her eyes in silent concentration, the Queen unleashed a potent and mysterious elven magic. The incantation manifested itself as a brilliant talisman, hovering protectively over the unconscious form of the eldest princess. This powerful talisman exuded a formidable spiritual energy that was unmistakably the work of the Elven Queen. With unyielding resolve, the Queen's spirit materialized within the talisman. Suddenly, an intense and focused spiritual attack emanated from the talisman. Its target was Wang Jian, specifically his soul. However, Wang Jian was no stranger to spiritual confrontations, and his formidable spiritual energy allowed him to defend against the onslaught with ease. As the spiritual assault failed to subdue him, a spectral figure emerged from the talisman. It was none other than the Elven Queen herself, Alindra, a name whispered with reverence throughout the Elven Kingdom. "Release my daughter, human." Queen Alindra's voice resonated with regal authority and barely concealed fury. Her presence was formidable, her eyes ablaze with a mother's unyielding determination. Wang Jian, ever composed, regarded the formidable Elven Queen with a hint of sly amusement. "I didn't think you could appear like that. I guess that's also convenient for me. I did want to talk to you, considering we need to conduct a trade," he remarked with a confident smile. "I said, release my daughter, human." Queen Alindra's voice thundered with an unmistakable note of fury as her eyes bored into Wang Jian. With an elegant yet fierce motion, Queen Alindra unleashed a potent display of her elemental mastery. Vines of pure wood and metal sprang forth, each imbued with the perilous essence of poison. She had no intention of playing a waiting game, her goal was to end this threat to her daughter's life. Yet, Wang Jian's composure remained unshaken, and a subtle smile danced on his lips. This encounter was a test, an opportunity to gauge the might of the Elven Queen, and he was eager to see what she could unleash. As the vines, infused with the potent laws of nature, came dangerously close to Wang Jian, a remarkable and shocking turn of events transpired. Alindra watched in astonishment as a strange and radiant solar flame manifested, effortlessly reducing her powerful attacks to ashes. Her surprise was evident, for she was a formidable 7th-stage Saint Realm practitioner, endowed with the rare and extraordinary royal elven bloodline abilities that allowed her to contend with even 9th-stage Saint Realm experts. The ease with which Wang Jian dispelled her assault was nothing short of extraordinary, and it left Alindra both stunned and wary. Wang Jian couldn't help but taunt Queen Alindra in the face of her attacks. "Is this the extent of your power and determination, my dear Elven Queen? It's rather underwhelming. I'd expect a bit more effort to save your daughter from me." Queen Alindra's clenched teeth and blazing eyes revealed her mounting anger, but she decided to engage with Wang Jian. "Why have you taken my daughter, human? What do you want?" Wang Jian's response was laced with a sly undertone. "Now we're talking. I want something from you, Queen Alindra. I want the fountain of essence that the elves possess." The Elven Queen was taken aback, her shock evident in her eyes. "How do you, a mere human, know of the fountain of essence's existence within our realm?" Wang Jian shrugged, nonchalant. "Don't get too caught up in the minor details. All I want is for you to hand it over to me." Queen Alindra's voice resonated with unyielding resolve. "I would never surrender the fountain of essence to the likes of you." Wang Jian raised an eyebrow at her unwavering refusal. The Elven Queen's determination revealed the invaluable nature of the fountain of essence, even overshadowing the importance of her own daughter's life. It became clear to him that acquiring it would require a different approach. Wang Jian's expression turned cold, and he didn't hesitate to dismiss the Elven Queen. "Fine, have it your way. Since you're not planning to cooperate, there's no use for you here. Leave." Just as Queen Alindra's spirit seemed about to protest and demand her daughter's release, Wang Jian snapped his finger. In an instant, a surge of pure moon energy emanated from his fingertips, engulfing the spirit of the Elven Queen and reducing it to nothing. Effortlessly, the formidable elven queen's presence was obliterated, leaving behind only her daughter, still unconscious and in the hands of the ruthless human intruder. Back in the Elven Kingdom, Queen Elindra found herself sweating profusely as she recalled her intense interaction with the formidable human who had dared to kidnap her daughter. She realized that he was indeed a Saint Realm expert, but the sheer combat prowess he had displayed surpassed the capabilities of a standard Saint Realm cultivator. As she pondered the situation, she couldn't help but think, if my real body had been present, I might have been able to stop him. The limitations of her spiritual form were all too clear. She could only utilize her unique bloodline techniques and the true essence of the laws with her physical body, not with her spiritual manifestation. Queen Elindra was filled with curiosity and anxiety. She couldn't comprehend how this human had come to know about the Fountain of Essence. Within the Elven Kingdom, knowledge about the fountain was restricted to the royal family. And even among the royals, only those who were deemed truly worthy and of pure heart were entrusted with the secret knowledge. Notably, even her eldest daughter, Selena, whom Wang Jian had so audaciously abducted, was kept in the dark regarding the Fountain of Essence. Queen Elindra had determined that Selena's mindset was not yet worthy of such privileged knowledge. The mystery deepened as she wondered how an outsider had become aware of the fountain's existence. Wang Jian was carrying Selena, the kidnapped elven princess, to the Verzen Empire, while ensuring that her cultivation was completely sealed. As he took a closer look at her, he couldn't help but be captivated by her exquisite appearance. Selena had long, flowing blonde hair that cascaded down her back, framing her delicate features. Her large, striking green eyes held a hint of both elegance and seduction, and her slender body boasted a thin waist, accentuating her curvaceous bust and shapely buttocks. Her pointy elven ears were a clear indicator of her race's heritage. She was an epitome of elven beauty, a portrait of grace and allure that drew attention and fascination. Wang Jian, wearing a depraved and sly smirk on his face, held Selena closely in a manner that was far from respectful. His thoughts ran amok as he gazed at her, his mind dancing with wicked intentions. I should be able to have a lot of fun with a beauty like her, he mused, his thoughts filled with dark desires. As Selena remained unconscious, she was blissfully unaware of the fact that one of the most terrifying individuals of the world now held her captive. Wang Jian took Selena to his personal chamber within the royal palace of the Verzen Empire, locking the doors behind him. Depraved intentions gleamed in his eyes as he advanced towards the unconscious elven princess. It would be boring if she remains asleep like this. I should wake her up, he thought, a wicked grin playing on his lips. Conjuring water, he tossed it lightly onto Selena, just enough to rouse her from her slumber. When Selena blinked herself awake, she was startled to find herself in a completely unfamiliar place, far removed from the battlefield where she fought against the beast race. Her emerald eyes widened as they fell upon Wang Jian, a man of extraordinary handsomeness, his silver hair and blue eyes seemingly out of place within her understanding of the world. Who are you?" she stammered, her voice trembling with fear and confusion. Wang Jian's response was laced with a perverted glint in his eyes, his words chillingly direct, "I am your master from now on." With that, a night of twisted passion and dark desires unfolded in Wang Jian's chambers, entangling Selena and Wang Jian in a web of debauchery and cruelty. In the dimly lit chamber, the air was thick with tension as Selena, with her innocent eyes filled with fear and hatred, found herself trapped in the clutches of Wang Jian, whose sinister grin seemed to darken the room even further. Selena trembled in fear as Wang Jian slowly approached her. His large, muscular form loomed over her slender elven body. Her long, blonde hair cascaded over her shoulders and down her back. Her large, perky breasts bounced slightly as she cowered before him. Wang Jian reached out and began to roughly grope the elf's voluptuous chest through her thin gown, pinching and groping her tender, swollen nipples. The elf princess winced in pain as her captor's crude hands gripped her sensitive flesh. She let out a frightened whimper, attempting to squirm away from his grasp. "No! Please, don't touch me!" she begged, her green eyes filled with terror and desperation. Wang Jian merely laughed darkly in response, taking a step closer to trap her between his massive, muscular form and the wall behind her. "Oh, but I will touch you, little elf princess. And I will touch you in ways that you have never been touched before," he growled, his eyes flashing with a predatory hunger. He grabbed Selena's chin roughly, forcing her to look up at him. "You are mine now, and I will have my way with you. You will submit to me, and you will enjoy it." Selena shook her head frantically, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. "And no! I will never submit to you. I will never enjoy what you do to me." She spat, her voice shaking with fear and defiance. Wang Jian only laughed darkly, his eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, but you will," he replied, his voice low and menacing. "You will submit to me, and you will enjoy it. I can see it in your eyes, little elf princess. You want this as much as I do." Desperation etched into her features, Selena attempted to break free, but Wang Jian's iron grip on her only tightened. She struggled to release herself from his grasp, her face contorted with a mixture of anger and terror. "You can't keep me here. My people will come for me," she hissed, her defiance masking her inner turmoil. Wang Jian leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper, "Your people don't know where you are, my sweet Selena. And even if they did, they couldn't save you." Tears welled up in Selena's eyes as she implored, "Please, you don't have to do this. I'll do anything you want, just let me go." Wang Jian's devilish smirk curled even further as he took a step closer, his eyes filled with wicked desire. "So, let's start with your name. What is it?" Selena, grasping at a glimmer of hope, replied, "My name is Selena. I am the eldest princess of the Elven Kingdom. Now, let me go." Wang Jian's cruel laughter echoed through the chamber once more. "Eldest princess, huh? Now, I feel like wanting to make you do everything I desire. I will make you mine, body and soul." Selena's voice quivered as she stammered, "I'll never submit to you." Wang Jian's sly smile twisted into a wicked grin. "We'll see about that, my dear. Resistance only makes the conquest sweeter." Selena's eyes widened as Wang Jian's lips descended upon her own, crushing them together in a brutal kiss. She struggled to pull away, her small hands pushing weakly at his chest, but it was no use. Wang Jian's massive form towered over her, and she was no match for his strength. His tongue probed her mouth, and she tasted the malice on his lips as he devoured her, forcing her to taste what was to come. Selena's struggles weakened as the strength drained from her small frame, and she sagged against him, feeling the full weight of her helplessness wash over her. She could not escape, could not fight back. Wang Jian broke the kiss with a satisfied smirk. "You see, elf princess? I am in control here, and you will submit. Now, remove your clothes." His voice was demanding, and Selena could only nod in despair, slowly undressing herself as. Wang Jian watched with a feral grin. His eyes lingered over her curvy body, admiring the perky breasts that jiggled as she removed her clothing, the rounded hips and slender waist that were now so vulnerable to his desires. Selena knew what was coming, but she could not fight against the inevitable as Wang Jian grabbed her by the shoulders and pushed her to the bed, straddling her slender form and pinning her down with his weight. "You will never escape me, elf princess," he hissed, his voice deep and menacing. Selena whimpered softly, tears spilling down her cheeks, as Wang Jian lowered himself between her trembling thighs and began to roughly grope her tender flesh of her breasts once more. "You belong to me now, little elf princess," he growled, punctuating each word with a rough slap across her buttocks that left her skin stinging. Selena began to sob, her mind reeling with the horrifying realization of what was happening to her. She was powerless to stop Wang Jian as he brutally took her, ravishing her body with rough strokes and harsh demands, claiming her in a way that would forever change her. As he finally... As Selena's struggles began to weaken, her body betrayed her, responding to the sinister pleasure that Wang Jian was coaxing out of her. She fought to suppress her moans, but her voice trembled as she spoke. I won't. I can't. Wang Jian's voice, laced with seduction, coiled around her, his breath hot against her ear. But you already are, my sweet Selena. Your body doesn't lie. Why are you doing this? She whispered, her eyes clouded with confusion and vulnerability. Wang Jian, his voice dripping with malevolence, replied, because, my dear, it brings me immense satisfaction to break you, to make you mine completely. Selena's cheeks flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and arousal, her innocence shattered by the sinister pleasures he was forcing upon her. I hate you for this, she muttered, though her voice lacked the conviction it once held. Wang Jian chuckled darkly, his hands tracing forbidden paths of pleasure along her skin. Hate is just another emotion, my dear. Soon, you'll have no room left for such trivial feelings. Selena's trembling form spoke of both resistance and submission as her voice quivered. I won't give in to you. Wang Jian's fingers trailed along her skin, leaving a trail of fire in their wake. He leaned in, his lips brushing against her ear, and whispered in a voice thick with seduction, that's what makes it all the more thrilling. Selena's breaths grew shallow and ragged, her resistance crumbling with each sinful caress. I should despise you, she said, though her words were now tinged with a hint of longing. Wang Jian's grin was wicked as he reveled in her surrender. Despise me all you want, sweet Selena. It only fuels the fire of your corruption. With each passing moment, Selena's willpower continued to erode as she was helplessly drawn deeper into Wang Jian's twisted desires. Selena's moans, once stifled, began to escape her lips, and her eyes, once filled with hatred, now displayed a mixture of pleasure and confusion. Her voice grew weaker as she admitted, I can't. I can't help it. Wang Jian's wicked grin widened as he reveled in her surrender. His voice held a sinister satisfaction. That's right, my sweet Selena. You're mine now, completely. Selena's defenses crumbled further, her voice barely a whisper. I hate myself for this. Wang Jian's voice was a dark promise as he continued to dominate her. In time, you'll learn to love it, my dear. As he spoke those words, Selena could feel Wang Jian's skilled hands exploring her ample curves. A mix of pleasure and exhilaration coursed through her, an undeniable sensation she couldn't suppress. That dominating aura emanating from Wang Jian was compelling, and her body reluctantly submitted to its allure. Selena's once fervent resistance melted away like a snowflake in the warmth of a scorching fire. Her body, a canvas of soft curves and alluring beauty, trembled under Wang Jian's wicked spell. As he continued to explore her, she couldn't deny the sensations coursing through her. The combination of Wang Jian's mastery and her own inner turmoil cast a seductive web around her. It was a wicked dance, one that entangled Selena further with each passing second. Her moans, once stifled by defiance, now resonated in the dimly lit chamber, a testament to the turmoil within her. Selena whimpered as she felt Wang Jian's hardness against her. She wanted to pull away, to reject him, but she found herself wanting more. The tension between them had been building for so long, and now that it had finally come to this, she couldn't resist. As he thrust into her, Selena gasped, her body betraying her. She closed her eyes and let herself surrender to the sensation of being filled by his massive cock. The pleasure was overwhelming, and she could feel her arousal building. Yes, Wang Jian growled, his face contorted with lust. You like this, don't you? Selena moaned softly, unable to deny it. She could feel the tension leaving her body, replaced by a heady rush of desire. Wang Jian's rough handling of her body had awakened something primal within her, and she found herself craving more. He pounded into her relentlessly, his powerful body driving her against the bed. Selena arched her back, her hips moving in time with his thrusts. She couldn't believe how good it felt, how right it felt to give in to this forbidden pleasure. As Wang Jian neared his climax, he grabbed Selena's hips tightly, pulling her close. She wrapped her legs around him, desperately wanting to feel every inch of him inside her. With a grunt, he came, filling her with his hot seed. Selena cried out as the orgasm ripped through her, leaving her limp and satisfied. Wang Jian collapsed on top of her, panting heavily. "You're mine now," he whispered into her ear. "You belong to me." Selena felt a shiver run down her spine at his words. A part of her still resisted, but another part craved the power and dominance that Wang Jian represented. She wanted to be his plaything, his willing slave. Wang Jian kissed her deeply, his tongue tangling with hers. Selena returned the kiss, feeling her desire for him growing stronger by the moment. As they came together again, she knew that her resistance was fading fast. As the minutes stretched into hours, Selena's innocence slowly dissolved. Her wide eyes, once filled with fear and loathing, now held a different kind of enchantment. Desire and curiosity mingled in the depths of her gaze, replacing the earlier turmoil. Her struggles had transformed into ardent responses, her once defiant voice now a chorus of need and want. Wang Jian's sly, victorious grin betrayed the dark satisfaction that filled him as he continued to dominate her. He reveled in the transformation he was orchestrating, guiding Selena down a treacherous path of her own desire. The sinister promise he held true to her echoed through the room, affirming the control he had over her. Selena's skin flushed with embarrassment and arousal, her own body betraying her as the intoxicating sensations intensified. She moaned, her voice quivering with the undeniable pleasure that Wang Jian coaxed out of her. It was a battle she was losing with every passing moment, a battle she was starting to embrace. Wang Jian's touch was like a masterful symphony, playing her body with expertise that left her breathless and wanting. Her pulse quickened, and her body quivered in response to his sensual artistry. Her mind was clouded by an overwhelming mixture of emotions, as her innocence gave way to a newfound yearning. That sinister aura of domination exuded by Wang Jian was impossible for her to ignore. It was a palpable force that enveloped her, ensnaring her in its hypnotic grasp. Her body yielded willingly to its control, a surrender she could no longer deny. And as the night wore on, Selena's transformation became more pronounced. The once virginal, innocent princess was now a creature of desire, her resistance a distant memory. Her voice, once filled with anger and defiance, now echoed with want and need, leaving no room for doubt. "I have lost," Selena muttered. She had finally succumbed to the darkness that Wang Jian offered, and there was no turning back. Selena was now a captive of her own desire, ensnared by the sinister seduction that had woven its inescapable web around her, leaving her forever corrupted. Selena found herself eagerly responding to Wang Jian's touch, her body craving the attention and pleasure he provided. He had awakened a desire within her that she had never known before, and she couldn't help but give in to it. "I want more," Selena whispered, pulling him closer. "Make me yours." Wang Jian smirked, his hand grabbing her wrist and pulling her arm above her head. "That's my girl," he growled, slapping her ass. New chapters will be fully updated at novl/bin.com. Selena arched her back in response, her body becoming aroused at the domination and control he was exerting over her. She wanted to submit completely to him, to let go of all the reservations and resistance she had held onto until now. "Tell me you want it," Wang Jian demanded, thrusting into her with even more force. "I want it," Selena moaned, her hips undulating in time with his thrusts. "Please, take me." Wang Jian grabbed a fistful of her hair and pulled her face towards his, kissing her roughly. Selena whimpered, returning his kiss with equal passion. She wanted to surrender herself completely to him, to give in to the overwhelming pleasure that he was providing her. As he drove into her, pounding her with his full strength, Selena gasped and cried out. She felt her own orgasm building, an orgasm that would leave her completely at Wang Jian's mercy. "Give in to me," Wang Jian growled. "Let go." Selena could feel her resistance slipping away, replaced by the all-consuming need for release. "I'm yours," she moaned. "Take me." With a groan, Wang Jian thrust into her one final time, filling her completely with his seed. As they came together, Selena felt her body finally surrender to the pleasure that Wang Jian had brought her. She was his now, completely and irrevocably. Wang Jian collapsed on top of her, panting heavily. "You belong to me now," he said, his voice full of triumph. "I have claimed you as my own." The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, Selena lay there, her body still throbbing from the intensity of the night before, her mind clouded by a mix of pleasure and shame. She was no longer the virginal, innocent princess she had once been. The forbidden desires that Wang Jian had awakened within her now gnawed at her conscience. Wang Jian, now dressed in his regal attire, sat on the edge of the bed, his expression unreadable. His fingers traced absent-minded patterns on Selena's bare thigh as he finally broke the silence. "You were quite the prize last night, Selena," he said, his voice low and seductive, filled with an unsettling mix of satisfaction and dominance. Selena's cheeks flushed as she turned her gaze away, her inner turmoil evident in her eyes. I don't know what came over me. It was wrong." Wang Jian chuckled darkly, his fingers still tracing her skin. "Wrong, perhaps, but undeniably pleasurable, don't you think? All West ch.rs on n.o/vli/n/.cm." Selena bit her lip, unable to deny the truth in his words. The pleasure he had shown her had been unlike anything she had ever experienced. "That doesn't change the fact that I hate myself for it," she muttered, her voice trembling. Wang Jian leaned in closer, his breath warm against her ear. "You might hate yourself now, but you'll come to crave it. The darkness I've awakened in you will never truly fade." Selena shivered, her inner conflict growing with each passing moment. The memories of the night before still felt like a surreal dream, but the lingering desires were all too real. Wang Jian continued, his voice a sultry whisper, "You're mine now, Selena. No matter how hard you fight it, you'll always belong to me." The princess glanced at him, a mix of defiance and uncertainty in her gaze. "I won't become your puppet." Wang Jian's lips curled into a wicked grin. "Puppet, no. But a willing participant in the pleasures I offer? Most definitely." Selena was torn between her past self and the newfound desires that Wang Jian had awakened. She had been corrupted, and she knew there was no turning back. Wang Jian leaned in closer, his eyes locked onto Selena's. "Tell me, Selena," he purred, "about your precious elven kingdom. You are the eldest princess, after all. I'm sure you hold many secrets." Selena hesitated, torn between her loyalty to her kingdom and the dark desires that Wang Jian had awakened in her. The forbidden allure of sharing her kingdom's secrets with this man was tantalizing. "I can't. I won't betray my people," she whispered, her voice trembling. Wang Jian leaned in closer, his lips brushing against her ear. "Oh, but Selena, you've already betrayed them by giving in to me. Do you really think they would ever accept you after what we shared last night?" Her breath hitched as she absorbed the weight of his words. The consequences of her actions were becoming increasingly clear. Wang Jian continued to caress her, his fingers moving with a slow, deliberate purpose. "Your loyalty to your kingdom might cost you dearly, my dear princess. But your loyalty to me, Well, that might just ensure your survival. Selena's willpower wavered. The thought of losing everything she held dear was unbearable. She was trapped between the loyalty to her people and the allure of her captor, a devilishly charming man who had shown her pleasures beyond her wildest dreams. "Tell me, Selena," Wang Jian whispered, "can you really afford to be loyal to a kingdom that will no longer see you as one of their own?" Wang Jian's skillful touches and tempting words sent shivers down Selena's spine, making her breath hitch and her eyes flutter. She was caught in his seductive web, unable to resist. As her tears welled up, Selena gave in to his demands, her voice trembling as she began to speak. "Don't harm the elves. I want you to take a blood oath that you will never harm my race." Wang Jian, with a smirk playing on his lips, nodded in response. "As long as they don't attack me first, I agree to never kill the members of your race." Poor Selena didn't realize the meaning behind Wang Jian's words. He had specifically mentioned that as long as they don't attack him first. But considering the current situation, it was only natural for the elves to attack Wang Jian right after seeing him because he had kidnapped Selena, who was their eldest princess. Well, Selena wasn't really too bright in such matters, and it showed as she naively nodded to Wang Jian's words, thinking that it was okay to trust him. Selena's voice trembled as she began to share the wonders of her elven kingdom with Wang Jian. "Our kingdom is located in an enchanting forest that's deeply connected to the World Tree, which we elves hold in the highest reverence and revere as a sacred entity." Her eyes lit up as she talked about their sacred connection to the towering tree. "The World Tree is magnificent, an enormous and ancient entity that has blessed us for generations. Its branches span far and wide, creating a vast network where the elves have constructed our residences. We live in harmony with nature, built on the boughs of the World Tree itself." Her expression softened as she spoke of her people. "Our elven race is diverse, with many clans each attuned to different aspects of nature through our unique bloodlines. But it's the royal bloodline of the elves that holds a special place. We're the ones who are attuned to all attributes in nature." Selena's eyes sparkled with a sense of pride. "It is due to our unique connection to nature that the elves possess a natural talent for harnessing qi and spiritual energy. Despite our seemingly delicate physiques, our race's strength is comparable to the formidable dragon race, the formidable demon race, and the noble angelic race." She took a moment to let the significance of this sink in. Wang Jian listened attentively to Selena's words, his interest piqued. As she finished describing the elven kingdom and their connection to the World Tree, he wore a contemplative expression. "That all sounds fascinating, my dear Selena." At the mention of the Fountain of Essence, Selena's brows furrowed in confusion. "Fountain of Essence? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of such a thing in all my time as the eldest princess." He leaned in closer, a wicked glint in his eyes as he continued, "But you see, Selena, I have a specific goal in mind. My aim in targeting the elven kingdom is not to harm your race. I'm after something much more precious." Selena's brows furrowed in confusion. "Precious? I don't understand." Wang Jian's smile remained charming, even as his words took a more sinister turn. "I seek something known as the Fountain of Essence. I need it to achieve my ambitions." Selena was taken aback. "Fountain of Essence? I've never heard of such a thing." Wang Jian's voice dropped to a sultrier tone, his hand moving in an alluring gesture as he continued to explain. "I understand, my dear. It's most likely a well-guarded secret." Selena couldn't help but respond with a soft moan, the bewitching aura of Wang Jian's words and movements captivating her. "A secret? But my mother, the elf queen, never mentioned such a thing to me." Wang Jian leaned in closer, his breath hot against Selena's ear. "You see, the knowledge of the Fountain of Essence must have been passed to only the elf queen from one generation to the next." Selena shivered at his proximity, her voice a breathless whisper. And what do you want with it? Wang Jian's eyes bore into hers with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. I want the power it holds, the strength it can provide me. But I have no interest in harming your people, Selena. If you help me, if you guide me to the Fountain of Essence, I promise that the Elven Kingdom will remain untouched by my hands, and I'll even protect it from any future threats. He continued to use his charming charisma, his hands moving with a tantalizing grace, as he held her gaze. Selena found herself unable to resist his allure, her moans betraying the internal conflict she felt. I don't know how to find it, she admitted, her voice quivering. Wang Jian leaned even closer, his voice a sultry whisper, as he laid out his despicable strategy. Selena, obtaining the Fountain of Essence is easy. Just follow my instructions. Selena swallowed hard, her heart heavy with the weight of what he was about to propose. Tell me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Help me enter the Elven Kingdom secretly. I will do the rest, Wang Jian whispered. As he spoke, his hands wickedly made their way toward Selena's ample chest, their intentions quite clear. Selena moaned as she felt his hands cup and massage her large, full breasts. His touch was electric, and her body responded by trembling with desire and arousal. Her breathing quickened as his fingers teased her sensitive nipples through the fabric of her blouse. Oh, she gasped. Please, do more. Wang Jian chuckled softly as he felt her nipples harden under his touch. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. Selena said. After their conversation, Wang Jian and Selena began making preparations for their ambitious plan. Wang Jian had an intricate task at hand, requiring the creation of 2 specialized artifacts that would play a pivotal role in infiltrating the Elven Kingdom. The first artifact was a spatial bracelet, carefully designed to fuse the spatial element within the Ebon Void essence or with Wang Jian's shadow attribute. This fusion would enable him to traverse through space by establishing a link between his shadow attribute and the spatial attribute in Selena's bracelet. The Ebon Void essence or's unusually stable spatial element was a very crucial factor, and it was due to this that Wang Jian could cross the formidable elven barriers without alerting the elves. The second artifact, equally challenging to craft, served to conceal Wang Jian's presence entirely from the senses and detection tools of the elves. It was a vital element in their plan, enabling Wang Jian to move stealthily within the Elven Kingdom. Although Wang Jian could conceal his presence with the attribute of shadow, he wasn't sure that it would work in the Elven Kingdom. This was because the elves must have developed some countermeasures against the devil's ability to utilize shadows to move stealthily. Wang Jian envisioned this artifact as a ring, a pendant, or something that would be easy to carry. Follow Iwa's stories at nvl/by/n.com. The task was deemed exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, but Wang Jian had the expertise of the 4 most skilled engineers and craftsmen of the dwarven race that he had abducted earlier. He was confident that their skills and dedication could meet the challenge he presented. Approximately 15 days later, the news arrived. The 4 dwarves had worked relentlessly to fulfill Wang Jian's demands, successfully crafting the 2 specialized artifacts. Wang Jian wasted no time in subjecting them to rigorous testing. After several trial runs and comprehensive assessments, he was satisfied with their performance, and his experts confirmed their effectiveness. The next phase of their plan was set in motion. In the grand theater of war, the Verzen Empire of humans and the beast race from the northern regions found themselves in an increasingly dire situation. Initially, they had held the upper hand in their respective battles, leveraging their own strengths and utilizing formidable artifacts and unique abilities. The Verzen Empire boasted the power of devil artifacts and employed devastating devil-killing arrays and talismans. These devilish weapons and tools provided a significant advantage in their war against the dwarven race. The beast race, on the other hand, capitalized on their innate physical prowess and harnessed unique bloodline abilities. Their formidable strength and battle strategies were proving effective in dealing with the elves and their magical capabilities. However, a significant turning point occurred when Wang Jian abducted Selena, the eldest princess of the elves. Following this audacious act, the tide of battle began shifting drastically against the Verzen Empire and the Beast race. It appeared that the elven race had unleashed a formidable force of powerful experts, each of them at the peak of the Emperor realm. These newly emerged elven experts seemed capable of single-handedly turning the tide of the entire battle in favor of the elves. The elemental prowess they displayed was awe-inspiring and, more importantly, unmatched. The elves dispatched these experts directly to the battlefield where the Verzen Empire and the Dwarven race clashed. With their arrival, the experts of the elven race skillfully countered all the devil artifacts, talismans, and devil-killing arrays that the humans of the Verzen Empire had been relying upon. Their actions effectively neutralized the dark and sinister advantages the humans had enjoyed, leaving them in a state of shock and despair. The battles had taken a dramatic turn. The Verzen Empire and the Beast race were now on the defensive, struggling to find a way to overcome the unexpected resurgence of the elves and their newfound, supremely talented experts. As the raging battles continued, the world was about to witness another shockwave of chaos and destruction. A series of massive explosions rocked the very heart of the Verzen Empire, striking not only the capital but also several major cities. The deafening blasts shattered the tranquility of the empire, sending shockwaves of panic and destruction through the streets. Citizens, innocent people who had nothing to do with the war, found themselves caught in the devastation. The explosions inflicted severe injuries and claimed the lives of many unfortunate souls. Chaos reigned, and panic spread like wildfire as the empire reeled from this unprecedented calamity. News of these horrifying explosions quickly reached the ears of the elven race and the dwarven race, who couldn't help but wonder who could be responsible for such a catastrophic event. In the midst of this chaos and destruction, another astonishing piece of news emerged. The members of the elven race and the dwarven race who had been taken as prisoners by the Verzen Empire had miraculously regained their freedom. The prisoners, having tasted liberation, wasted no time and embarked on a rush back to their respective dominions. The dwarves hastily made their way to the dwarven-powered Immortal Dominion, while the members of the elven race sprinted towards the Divine Tree Elven Dominion. The most astonishing revelation was that even Princess Selena, the eldest princess of the elven race, who had been abducted by Wang Jian, was among those who had managed to escape from her prison. Her unexpected freedom sent ripples of hope and determination through the elven warriors who had been battling on the front lines. The moment word of Princess Selena's escape reached their ears, these devoted elven soldiers and mages immediately abandoned their positions on the battlefield, prioritizing the safety and well-being of their beloved princess. The sheer number of elves who rushed to her side was staggering, leaving the dwarven forces to confront the formidable Verzen Empire alone. The tide of battle turned swiftly against the dwarves, who, now outnumbered and overwhelmed, fought valiantly but struggled to maintain their ground. The war was taking a devastating toll on both sides, but the elven race's commitment to protecting their princess remained unwavering. It didn't take long for the elves to reach and safely escort Princess Selena back to the heart of the Elven Kingdom, the Divine Tree Elven Dominion. As the elves celebrated the safe return of their beloved princess, Selena, they had no inkling of the profound transformation that had taken place during her captivity with Wang Jian. Unbeknownst to her people, Selena was no longer the innocent and pure elven princess they remembered. The unforgettable, intimate nights spent with Wang Jian had left an indelible mark on her soul. Selena had descended into depravity to an extent that was beyond recognition. She no longer harbored resistance or hesitation but instead eagerly anticipated Wang Jian's presence. Her desires had shifted, and she had developed an insatiable longing for their shared moments. In the quiet moments just before reuniting with her fellow elves, Wang Jian and Selena continued to indulge in their intimate encounters. Selena's heart ached for Wang Jian's touch, and her mind was clouded with thoughts of their forbidden passion. She had grown to not only desire but love the connection they shared. Paradoxically, it was the depths of her depravity that fueled her unwavering commitment to fulfilling the task that Wang Jian had assigned to her. In pursuit of her twisted and depraved desires, Selena was determined to prove herself loyal to him. Selena's heart raced with trepidation as the moment to face her mother, Queen Alindra, drew near. The Queen of the Elves possessed a unique set of abilities and senses that could discern the most intricate details of a being's aura and their attributes. Selena couldn't help but worry about whether her mother, with her extraordinary sight, would uncover the profound change that had occurred in her during her captivity with Wang Jian, especially the fact that she had lost her virginity to a human. But Wang Jian had assured her that he would take care of this matter. His confidence had given Selena some solace, and she trusted his words. In her moments of doubt, she found herself inexplicably comforted by Wang Jian's unwavering assurance that he could protect her secret. Selena's faith in him was unwavering. Now, Selena stood before Queen Alindra, her heart pounding with anxiety and excitement. As her mother regarded her with those unique eyes, Selena prayed that Wang Jian's assurances would hold true, and her secret would remain concealed. As Queen Alindra carefully scanned her daughter Selena, her extraordinary eyesight examined her aura and energy. To her relief, she didn't immediately detect any glaring issues. As Queen Alindra scrutinized her daughter, Selena's energy signature appeared to be her usual self. There was a hint of underlying turbulence, but it wasn't immediately alarming. She noticed a touch of newfound restraint in Selena's aura, as if some bonds had been recently released. Her energy was slightly erratic, but it was nothing that the elixirs of the elven race couldn't resolve. With a sigh of relief, Queen Alindra nodded to herself, thankful that her daughter had returned unharmed. She dismissed all the members of their race who had gathered in the hall, leaving only herself and Selena. Rushing forward, Queen Alindra enveloped her daughter in a warm, reassuring embrace. She whispered softly to Selena, "My dear, you must have suffered greatly at the hands of those detestable humans." Tears welled up in Selena's eyes, and she clung to her mother tightly, her voice choked with emotion. "Mother, I'm so glad to be back. It was a difficult time." Queen Alindra held Selena close, her voice a soothing murmur as she comforted her daughter. "I'm so relieved you're home, my dear. Now, tell me about your time in the clutches of those detestable humans. How did you manage to escape?" Selena's voice quivered as she recounted the ordeal. "It was a trying experience, Mother. I was taken from the Elven Kingdom by a human, Wang Jian, who demanded information about our Fountain of Essence. He was relentless, but I really didn't know anything about it. Over time, I had to do things I'm not proud of." Queen Alindra's eyes filled with concern as she listened to her daughter's words. "What kind of things, Selena? You have nothing to be ashamed of. You were a prisoner, forced into a situation beyond your control." Selena hesitated for a moment, then continued. "I had to share information about the Elven Kingdom with him, Mother. I am really sorry. Feared for my life, and I had to do more than that to ensure my survival." Her mother's embrace tightened as she realized the depth of Selena's trauma. "You don't need to say more, my love. You did what you had to do to come back to us safely. That's what matters most." Selena nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so grateful to be home, Mother, and to be with you." Queen Alindra caressed her daughter's hair and whispered softly, "You're safe now, Selena. We'll get through this together. I promise." In that moment, as Selena clung to her mother, she felt a profound sense of relief. Her secret was safe, and she was back in the loving embrace of her family. After talking with her mother for some more time, Selena finally decided to retreat to her room, where she could have some privacy. Once in the privacy of her room, she looked at the bracelet that Wang Jian had given her. With a mix of nervousness and desire, she tapped the bracelet. Selena watched with bated breath as the spatial and shadow attributes began to intertwine and seep from the bracelet. Her nervousness was palpable, fearing that her mother might detect something unusual. She watched as the mysterious attributes seeped out from the bracelet, creating a delicate connection to the realm of shadows. To her immense relief, there was no commotion, and Queen Alindra seemed to remain unaware of her clandestine visitor. Suddenly, a man materialized from the shadows, right before her eyes. It was Wang Jian. Selena's heart skipped a beat as she saw him step out. Without wasting any time, he reached out to pull Selena into an embrace. His words were a sultry whisper against her ear, and his hands ventured to her curvy buttocks. "You've done well, my pet." Wang Jian smacked Selena's buttocks aggressively, leaving her panting and moaning in response. Selena loved being smacked by him, as it made her feel dominated and submissive to his desires. Stop. "Don't smack me so hard," she exclaimed, but her eyes told a different story as she arched her back to present her ass even more. Wang Jian's smacks grew even harder, and Selena felt a wave of arousal wash over her. "I am only beginning, my sweet Selena," he hissed in her ear, the heat of his breath causing her to shudder. As his smacks intensified, Selena felt the boundaries between pleasure and pain blur. "You love it, don't you?" Wang Jian taunted. Selena's heart was pounding, her eyes half-lidded as she nodded and whimpered, "Yes, I love it." But as the fiery intensity of their encounter reached its peak, Wang Jian knew he had to leave. He whispered one last promise to Selena before reluctantly stepping away. "Soon, my sweet Selena, we'll continue this. But now, I have to go find the Fountain of Essence." Selena was left breathless, her body trembling with desire as he departed. She could only watch him leave, her heart torn between the ecstasy she had just experienced and the urgency of their mission. With determination burning in his eyes, Wang Jian swiftly left Selena's chambers. He had a mission to accomplish. He had to find the Fountain of Essence, and he had a strong hunch that it was located near the World Tree, the colossal entity at the center of the Divine Tree Elven Dominion. However, as he neared the World Tree, Wang Jian encountered an invisible barrier, a formidable obstruction that blocked his path. He furrowed his brows and focused his profound Saint Realm prowess on bypassing the barrier, but to his surprise, even his extraordinary abilities couldn't breach this formidable defense. Wang Jian inquired with the system, hoping for a solution to this seemingly impenetrable obstacle. The system responded quickly. "The barrier you've encountered is created by an intense power of heavenly energy. It is beyond the capacity of normal means to overcome. Only the one chosen by the World Tree itself can pass through this barrier." Wang Jian's expression darkened as he sought further information. "Who is the one chosen by the World Tree at this moment?" he inquired. The system's response was swift. "The current Elf Queen is the one chosen by the World Tree. Only she can pass through this barrier." Wang Jian let out a heavy sigh as he realized the magnitude of the challenge ahead. Obtaining the Fountain of Essence was not going to be an easy task. With the current Elf Queen, the only one capable of passing through the impenetrable barrier, the only option was to somehow compel her to bring it to him. Wang Jian's mind churned with a series of malevolent and devious plans. One option he contemplated was manipulating the Elf Queen's emotions. He thought about orchestrating a dire situation, one that would threaten her people and the World Tree. By placing the elves in jeopardy, he hoped to force her to bring the Fountain of Essence to him in exchange for their safety. Another plan involved killing the Elf Queen and then making Selena inherit the throne as the Queen of Elves. However, this would be a long-term strategy and Wang Jian didn't want to waste so much of his time with this. Wang Jian also considered taking a more direct approach, using his allure and charisma to seduce the Elf Queen. He would exploit her vulnerability and desires, just as he had with Selena. Once she was under his control, he could manipulate her into securing the Fountain of Essence. However, even this approach had its flaws, as he was sure that the Elf Queen would not listen to his commands that she ardently believes would threaten the elven race. And since the Elf Queen considered the Fountain of Essence even more important than her daughter, there was a good chance that she wouldn't give it to Wang Jian no matter how badly he ensnares her mind and body. As Wang Jian contemplated his malevolent schemes, he couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration. Each plan he considered had its flaws and complications, and it was clear that manipulating or coercing the Elf Queen was not a straightforward task. But then, it struck him an audacious, out-of-the-box plan that had the potential to succeed where the others might fail. It was a plan so sinister, so unexpected, that no one in the world could see it coming. Visit n0vl/bin. For the best novel reading experience. Wang Jian decided to target the very heart of the Elven Dominion, the World Tree. Selena had informed him that the Elven Kingdom was nestled within an enchanting forest connected to the World Tree. This connection was their lifeblood and the source of their strength. If this forest could be contaminated or damaged, the consequences for the World Tree would be dire. His plan was to introduce a poison into the forest, one that was specifically engineered to affect the World Tree. This insidious poison would exploit the direct connection between the forest and the World Tree, allowing it to spread rapidly. As it coursed through the roots and branches, it would gradually weaken and ultimately destroy the World Tree, causing devastation to the elves. Wang Jian was aware that this plan was risky and ruthless, but it offered him the leverage he needed. He could approach the Elf Queen with an ultimatum, deliver the Fountain of Essence to him, or he would release the poison into their beloved forest. The threat would be real, the danger to the World Tree substantial. It was a plan that left no room for negotiation, and Wang Jian knew the Elf Queen's love for the World Tree was unparalleled. The prospect of its destruction would be a powerful motivator, one that might force her to make the ultimate sacrifice for her people. With this wicked and cunning strategy in mind, Wang Jian uprooted a twig and stored it in his ring before returning to Selena's chambers and used her bracelet to teleport back to his chambers in Verzen Empire. Once he was back, he decided to summon the dwarves, the Miracle Angel tribe, the Nether Curseweaver Devil clan along with the Blue Moon Eclipse Devil clan. Wang Jian then ordered them all to develop a poison that could affect and even destroy the World Tree along with the enchanted forest of the elves. The small twig Wang Jian had brought back from the Elven Kingdom contained a minuscule trace of the World Tree's energy. It was a feeble link to the immense power that resided within the World Tree, but it was all they had to work with. The Dwarven race, the Devil race, and the Miracle Angel tribe joined forces to develop a poison capable of restraining or corrupting the World Tree and its energy. It was an arduous task, for the World Tree's energy was unlike anything they had encountered before. It seemed to be impervious to both the devil attribute and the angelic attribute, presenting a unique challenge. Wang Jian had anticipated this difficulty, and it was the brilliance of the dwarven races for geniuses that ultimately provided a breakthrough. They devised a method to create a poison that could affect the World Tree, using an amalgamation of various resources. One of the four dwarves approached Wang Jian and informed him of the demanding requirements. To create a corrosive poison of such potency, they needed resources at the 9th tier level. These materials were rare and challenging to obtain. Wang Jian fell into a thoughtful trance, considering the immense challenge of gathering the necessary resources. However, his determination was unwavering, and he assured the dwarves that he would acquire the materials they needed. He wanted them to continue their research while he took care of this critical task. With resolve in his heart, Wang Jian knew it was time to embark on a quest to gather these 9th-tier resources. He decided to explore the entire northern region with the help of Bishi Shuyan. Leveraging the power of the system, Wang Jian had the unique ability to fuse two rare high-tier resources to create a resource of even higher tier. This was a key advantage that would aid him in acquiring the rare materials necessary for the creation of the potent poison. Amidst the sprawling expanse of the northern region, Wang Jian and his concubine, Bishi Shuyan, embarked on their quest to gather the rare and potent ninth-tier resources. Their journey took them through pristine forests, and it wasn't long before Shuyan sensed the presence of a legendary herb, the elusive silver petal blossom. She led Wang Jian to the heart of a secluded glade where the exquisite herb bloomed. Its petals shimmered like silver in the dappled sunlight, and it was said to possess extraordinary properties. Wang Jian carefully harvested the herb, well aware of its potential uses in their mission. Continuing their exploration, they soon discovered a rich deposit of mithril ore deep within a hidden mountain cavern. This rare and precious material was known for its exceptional strength and adaptability. As they collected samples of the ore, Wang Jian's mind raced with possibilities of how to utilize it in the creation of their special poison. A particularly fascinating find was an ancient beast's burial ground. The remains of a colossal flameclaw Wyrm, its bones radiating a residual electric charge, lay in a massive pit. Shuyan explained, these bones contain potent elemental energy. If used correctly, they could bolster the power of our poison. With great effort, they extracted the massive skull, knowing it would be a vital component. While journeying through dense forests, Wang Jian stumbled upon an overgrown and forgotten tomb. Its inscription revealed it to be the final resting place of an ancient king. Within the tomb, they found a burial chamber filled with precious artifacts. Wang Jian was drawn to a peculiar relic, a crystal vial filled with an iridescent liquid. This was a rare elixir known as the Tears of Earth, and it had incredible regenerative properties. Wang Jian felt that combining the Tears of Earth with the poison was going to yield a great result. Their relentless quest yielded more 8th-tier resources, including pure essence crystals and dragonheart stones. Each discovery further fueled their ambition to create a poison capable of tainting the world tree. As they continued their journey, their encounters led them to resources of undeniable value, carefully catalogued and prepared for use. Wang Jian and Bishi Shuyan returned to their palace, eager to put their hard-earned resources to good use. The first step was to harness the unique capabilities of Wang Jian's system, which allowed him to fuse materials together with unparalleled precision. With the remains of the colossal flameclaw Wyrm at their disposal, Wang Jian embarked on a meticulous process. He ground the Wyrm's bones into a fine dust, and with Shuyan's guidance, they infused the Tears of the Earth into the powdered bone fragments. The result was nothing short of remarkable. What emerged from this fusion was a 9th-tier elixir known as the Tears of Inferno elixir. This potent elixir possessed the ability to enhance and amplify the flames and infernal energy within a being, gradually consuming them from the inside. The flames of Inferno had been born. The Tears of Inferno was a powerful substance that would serve as the cornerstone of their ambitious poison. Its unique property, the internal generation and amplification of flame energy, made it an ideal catalyst. To make it even more deadly, Wang Jian infused the elixir with the raw power of his solar flames, further augmenting its destructive capabilities. The next phase of their project was the fusion of the remaining 8th-tier resources they had collected during their journey. Wang Jian's expertise and Shuyan's guidance played a crucial role as they meticulously combined the rare essence crystals, mithril ore, and a host of other materials, crafting a variety of powerful and sinister concoctions. They created an alloy capable of withstanding immense elemental pressure, a subversive toxin that could corrode even the most resilient of materials, and enchanted gems that could siphon energy from the surroundings. Their efforts culminated in the production of several 9th-tier resources. Wang Jian surveyed their stockpile of materials with satisfaction, knowing that they now had more than enough resources to fulfill their objective. Their poison was taking shape, each component designed to corrupt and weaken the world tree's energy and defenses. The development of the poison aimed at corrupting the world tree's energy was a collaborative effort that drew upon the unique strengths of the Dwarven race, the Miracle Angel tribe, and the Devil clans. Discover stories on no/e/lbin.com. The Dwarven race contributed their exceptional knowledge of energies. With their ingenious minds, they devised the foundational concepts for the poison's composition, ensuring its effectiveness against the World Tree's powerful defenses. The Miracle Angel tribe, renowned for their understanding of rare herbs and concoctions, played a vital role in refining the Tears of Inferno elixir. They combined their expertise with the elixir and the herbs, crafting a mixture that would allow the World Tree's energy to accept the Tears of Inferno as part of its own power, rather than as a foreign threat. It was an intricate and challenging task, but the tribe's members were determined to see it through. The Devil clans, each with their unique abilities and curses, added their own sinister touches to the concoction. The Nether Curseweaver Devil clan's experts contributed a malevolent curse that would not only afflict the victims but also siphon their vitality, channeling it into a treasured artifact of their clan, the Ancestral Devil Scythe, which belonged to one of their greatest and strongest ancestors. The Blue Moon Eclipse Devil clan harnessed their moon-based powers to create illusions and numb the World Tree's senses. These illusions were designed to impede the World Tree's ability to perceive and counteract the poison, buying them precious time. The prototype of the poison had shown promise on the twig Wang Jian had brought from the Elven Kingdom. However, Wang Jian was fully aware that the success of the plan hinged on how the World Tree would react when exposed to the poison. The entire enchanted forest and the World Tree's energies were the real challenge they faced. With the poison nearing completion, Wang Jian ordered his subordinates to commence mass production. Their plan was to disperse the poison throughout the entire enchanted forest of the elves. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Wang Jian was preparing to disperse the poison throughout the enchanted forest of the elves. He received unexpected news that sent shockwaves through his plans. Reports indicated that the combined forces of the Verzen Empire and the Everlasting Mystical Empire had successfully pushed back the Dwarven race's dominion. It seemed that the advanced devil artifacts and devil talismans had given them the upper hand. Simultaneously, the beast race, previously in conflict with the elven race, had decided to withdraw from the battlefield due to the heavy losses they'd suffered. This surprising turn of events left Wang Jian contemplating his next moves. He was on the brink of conquering the Dwarven race's dominion, capitalizing on their weakened state. However, just as he was about to set his plan into motion, a shocking development occurred. The forces of the Verzen Empire and the Everlasting Mystical Empire, riding high on their recent victory, had plans to disrupt the connection between the Earth Veins and the Dwarven-powered Immortal Dominion. It was a strategic move that could cripple the Dwarven Dominion. Before they could execute this operation, they found themselves under attack. The assailants were from the Elemental Nexus Immortal Dominion, specifically the contingent of small sects within that realm. Wang Jian was taken aback by this unexpected twist. It appeared that the Elemental Nexus Immortal Dominion had entered the fray on behalf of the Dwarven race. Realizing the complexities and potential consequences of engaging in a battle with the Elemental Nexus Immortal Dominion, a dominion closely affiliated with Jiangchen, Wang Jian decided to take a cautious approach. He knew that confronting Jiangchen's forces would result in significant losses for his own faction. Wang Jian understood that his forces were not yet prepared to confront Jiangchen's formidable army. While he had confidence in their strength, he wasn't willing to take unnecessary risks. Allowing Jiangchen's forces to ally with the Elven Kingdom could drastically tip the scales against him. With this in mind, Wang Jian made a strategic decision. He reached out to Empress Isabella, the ruler of the Verzen Empire, and urged her to issue orders for the immediate retreat of all Verzen Empire forces from the ongoing conflict. Simultaneously, as the Emperor of the Everlasting Mystical Empire, he issued similar orders for the retreat of all forces from his own empire. This coordinated withdrawal would allow him to reassess the situation and develop a more comprehensive strategy that would consider the involvement of the Elemental Nexus Immortal Dominion, as well as the ongoing developments within the Elven Kingdom and Dwarven race. Thus, for now, retreating seemed to be the most prudent course of action. Wang Jian, utilizing his shadow movement technique and spatial movement, swiftly opened a rift in space and appeared silently in Selena's chamber. The dim moonlight filtered through the windows, casting a soft, ethereal glow on the room. Selena lay on her bed, her silken hair splayed across the pillow. She wore a loose-fitted green gown, which clung gently to her delicate frame. The gown enhanced her natural allure, making her appear incredibly seductive. Wang Jian's eyes gleamed with desire as he took in the sight before him. A wicked, lustful smile played on his lips, and he moved stealthily towards the slumbering elven princess. "Vis sit en velben, cm for eu ovals." Wang Jian swiftly grabbed hold of Selena's seductive body, pinning her down on the bed. He roughly pulled off her gown, exposing her soft, pale skin. His hands roamed over her curves, squeezing her breasts and groping her buttocks. Selena woke up with a start, her eyes widening in shock. She recognized Wang Jian's face above her, and a sense of relief washed over her. "Master," she whispered, her voice hoarse with arousal. Wang Jian chuckled darkly. "Good girl," he said, his voice rough with desire. He continued to fondle Selena's body, eliciting moans of pleasure from her. Selena arched her back, pressing her breasts against Wang Jian's chest. "Please, master," she begged, her hands clutching at his robes. "Take me." Wang Jian's hands moved lower, teasing Selena's wet folds. He thrust his fingers inside her, causing her to cry out in ecstasy. He then positioned himself between her legs and entered her roughly, filling her completely. Selena cried out in pleasure, her body arching off the bed. "Yes, master," she moaned. "Take me." As Wang Jian pumped his hard cock in and out of Selena, his hands moved down, and he began to tweak and pinch at her nipples. "Ah yes." Selena moaned, her back arching off the bed and her hips thrusting up to meet Wang Jian's powerful strokes. "Master." Wang Jian gave a vicious bite to her left nipple and then a teasing twist of the other before sinking his teeth deeper, leaving deep teeth marks. "Oh!" Selena's cry of pleasure came out as a strangled moan. Wang Jian continued to grind his teeth against Selena's breast and his hand left bruise-like finger marks that remained as they fucked. He reached around to hold Selena's hair in a tight fist and used her hair like a leash as he thrust into her with deep, powerful strokes that seemed to rock the whole room. "I'm claiming you as mine." He growled as his hand moved between her thighs, fingers tweaking and tugging at her swollen, wet clit. "You belong to me." "Ugh, yes." Selena screamed out in a delirium of pleasure and arousal as he claimed her in the dark. It wasn't long before she was climaxing around Wang Jian, her body arching wildly as her screams of pleasure echoed around the room. As her body continued to contract in orgasmic rapture, Wang Jian continued to claim his prize, driving into her hard and deep as Selena's hips met his with abandon and wild abandon. They went at it like beasts, him pumping in and out of her tight, wet body. Their pace became frantic as each of his thrusts rocked her to her very core. She clenched around his cock with each deep, brutal stroke and each sharp, biting bite that left its mark as he claimed her as his own. The night was young. The air was filled with the sound of Selena's cries of pleasure and Wang Jian's grunts of exertion. Their passion had only just begun, and they had already reached the heights of ecstasy together. Wang Jian had taken Selena's body roughly. She had welcomed him into her body, surrendering completely to his desire. The two of them had been at it for hours, their passion reaching a fever pitch that seemed to know no bounds. Wang Jian's hands had roamed freely over Selena's body, leaving bruises and bites that served as reminders of his ownership. He had marked her as his. They had taken each other with abandon, their bodies entwined in a frenzy of lust and need. Wang Jian's cock had plunged into Selena's tight, wet depths with each thrust, claiming her over and over again. Their passion continued relentlessly as they cried out in ecstasy, their bodies interlocked in a desperate fight for release. Selena's screaming reached a crescendo as Wang Jian rode her hard and fast and deep, her hips bucking up off the bed as she gave into the powerful possession of his cock sinking deep into her channel. Desperate for more, Wang Jian continued with deep, forceful penetration that sent deep tremors of pleasure pulsing through Selena with each thrust. He bent her over and flipped her onto her elbows and knees, driving his cock into her wet, accepting channel from behind. Wrapping his hands about her waist, his thrusts became faster as he took her roughly again and again, her howls of pleasure filling his ears as she begged for more. Selena knew this was not just desire, but something deeper rooted in their connection, a claiming her body, taking her, and making it his. As their wild passion wore on, they took shameless pleasure in leaving their marks on each other's bodies, his hot, rough bites tugging and bruising her soft, swelling breasts and her powerful grip digging into his flesh. Soon, Wang Jian was coming inside her, filling her full of his seed, as Selena climaxed at the same time as him. Wanting more, Wang Jian turned Selena once again onto her back, this time mounting and riding her, reaching around to hold her up as he fucked her hard and deep for a final round, this time from behind. Before long, she was swept up in a tumultuous wave of delirious, primal pleasure as Wang Jian took her once more while his teeth clamped down on her shoulder blades, biting flesh and leaving a trail of pain and pleasure behind each mark. With a final cry from both of them, each climaxed, exhaustion and ecstasy filling their minds and eyes. That was pretty good, Wang Jian spoke as he still fondled Selena's breasts, but rather gently right now. He began to talk to Selena for quite some time. After a couple of hours, Wang Jian left Selena's chamber with a satiated and smirking expression, carefully navigating through the darkened elven forest. He knew he had to be cautious here, for the artifact the dwarves had developed to hide his chi and aura wouldn't help him if he utilized his shadow abilities or any other conspicuous skills. The Elven Queen's senses were sharp, and he couldn't afford to be detected by even the lowest-ranked elf. Guided by Selena's intel on patrol schedules and vulnerable areas, Wang Jian moved stealthily through the forest, leaving behind a trail of poisonous droplets. Each droplet was a deadly concoction that would gradually seep into the soil and corrupt the energy of the world tree, ultimately causing devastation to the enchanted forest and, by extension, the Elven Kingdom. While the enchanted forest itself might not hold the same significance to the elves, its connection to the world tree was their lifeblood. Harm to the world tree would be a severe blow to the elven race, forcing them to act quickly to prevent further damage. Unbeknownst to the elves, Wang Jian had ordered his subordinates to craft this poison with precision, designed to specifically target the world tree's energy. The race against time had begun, as the elves would soon discover the insidious corruption spreading through their beloved enchanted forest, and they'd be left with no choice but to confront the impending catastrophe. Now, let's see how it goes. Wang Jian had a wide smile on his face as he awaited the results. Elf Queen Alindra sat regally upon her exquisite elven throne, which was carved from the rarest wood found in their enchanted forest. Her hair, like spun gold, cascaded down her shoulders, a stark contrast to her sapphire blue eyes that held both wisdom and ageless beauty. She was attired in a light, ethereal dress that clung to her curves, accentuating her seductive beauty. In the midst of her serene court, a group of concerned elves approached the throne, a mixture of worry and uncertainty etched across their faces. "Your Majesty," one of them spoke, her voice quivering slightly. "There have been strange occurrences in the enchanted forest. A faint incinerating energy seems to have seeped into and spread across many of our trees." The Elf Queen's elegant brows furrowed in deep concern, her blue eyes filled with worry as she regarded her subjects. Incinerating energy? How could such a thing happen within our sacred forest? Another elf stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the energy has already affected a significant portion of our enchanted forest. It is as if an unseen force seeks to harm our beloved trees." Elf Queen Alindra's mind raced as she considered this revelation. Her connection to the enchanted forest allowed her to sense its pulse, but there was something about this incinerating energy that seemed ominously familiar. The elves exchanged nervous glances as their queen appeared lost in thought, her concentration directed inward as she sought to understand the nature of the malevolent energy that was harming their precious forest. Slowly, a realization dawned upon her, and her eyes narrowed in anger. She turned to her subjects, her voice laced with a quiet fury. This energy, it bears a resemblance to the flames of the human who once abducted my daughter, Selena. The flames that bested me in battle. The elves gasped in horror as they heard those words. The human who had brought suffering to their princess had now dared to defile their sacred forest. Elf Queen Alindra's anger grew, her slender fingers clenching the arms of her throne. "We cannot allow this abomination to persist," she declared. Elf Queen Alindra approached one of the afflicted trees in the enchanted forest. She extended her graceful hand towards the tree's bark and closed her eyes, drawing upon her chi and her innate bloodline ability to dispel the strange incinerating energy that had taken hold. As she channeled her powers into the tree, a soft, soothing aura radiated from her. The incineration energy began to dissipate, swirling away like scattered embers carried by a gentle breeze. The elves who had gathered around watched in awe, their faces lighting up with hope. One of the older elves in the crowd cried out, "It's working. Our beloved queen is driving away this malevolent force." The joy in their hearts was palpable, and they began to dance and sing, celebrating the impending salvation of their forest. The music of the forest, the birdsong and the rustling leaves, joined in their jubilation. But then, a shiver of dread coursed through the elves as the same incineration energy, like a stubborn ember, rekindled within the tree, this time from a different spot. Their joy turned into confusion and then fear as the malevolent energy returned to their beloved tree. Elf Queen Alindra, though vexed by the persistent nature of this energy, remained resolute. She focused her powers once more, directing an even stronger current of her chi and bloodline ability to 1525. Dispel the incineration energy. Focused her powers once more, directing an even stronger current of her chi and bloodline ability to dispel the incineration energy. However, despite her heightened efforts, the result was the same, the energy kept returning. Her comrades, the elves who stood by her side, began to frown with worry. They exchanged concerned glances as their queen battled against this relentless force. Fear began to seep into their hearts, whispering of an adversary that could not be vanquished. Elf Queen Alindra's brow furrowed, and a realization slowly dawned upon her. She turned to her comrades, her expression a mix of frustration and understanding. "It seems that this malevolent energy has fused with the core of the tree. As long as the core remains untouched, the incineration will persist." The elves grew anxious, realizing the implications of their predicament. The queen's gentle eyes clouded with sorrow as she spoke once more. All new chapters NNV.com. This strange energy has fused with the tree's core to such an extent that it's impossible to purify it by my ability. In fact, we can only break its connection with the world tree to prevent this strange incineration energy from affecting the world tree. The hope that had briefly blossomed in their hearts was extinguished. Their forest remained in danger, and the challenge they faced was unlike any they had encountered before. Elf Queen Alindra's heart weighed heavily as she contemplated her next move. The fate of the enchanted forest and the world tree hung in the balance. Knowing that she had no other choice, she reluctantly decided to sever the connection between the afflicted tree and the world tree to prevent the incineration energy from spreading any further. It was a painful choice to make, but it was necessary to protect their sacred lifeline. As she used her abilities to break the link, a rush of anguish washed over her, and the tree shuddered as the connection was severed. A deep, ancient bond was broken, leaving the tree's leaves withering and its branches sagging. The elves around the queen watched with heavy hearts as the once vibrant tree began to deteriorate. However, what Elf Queen Alindra soon realized was even more distressing. As the tree's connection was severed, the malevolent incineration energy didn't vanish. Instead, it lingered within the soil, as if the earth itself had become a vessel for this sinister force. The soil beneath the tree's roots had absorbed the incineration energy, turning it into a malevolent conduit that threatened to corrupt more of the enchanted forest. A sense of despair washed over Elf Queen Alindra as she comprehended the extent of the threat they faced. The queen knew that time was of the essence. To protect the enchanted forest and the world tree, they would have to find a way to cleanse the soil and stop the insidious incineration energy from spreading any further. She turned to her comrades, her resolve unwavering, and issued a solemn command. We must act swiftly. This evil energy has seeped into the very soil of our beloved forest. It threatens to spread and corrupt our entire land. We must find a way to cleanse the soil before it's too late. The elves nodded, their faces etched with determination as they prepared to face this new and daunting challenge. As Elf Queen Alindra and her comrades deliberated on the best course of action to cleanse the soil and protect the enchanted forest, a sense of foreboding loomed over them. Their contemplations were interrupted by a group of distressed elves who approached the queen. One of the elves stepped forward and began to speak, her voice filled with concern and anguish. My queen, we have received alarming reports from across the forest. Many of our kin who consumed the fruits from the affected trees have fallen gravely ill. Elf Queen Alindra's heart sank as she listened to the grim news. She gazed at the group of elves, her eyes reflecting the worry that now plagued her. Tell me everything you know, she urged, her voice trembling with apprehension. Another elf chimed in, her words quivering with distress. My queen, those afflicted by this curse describe it as an insidious incineration that courses through their bodies. They are in agony, their insides burning as if consumed by fire. The reports continued to pour in from the distraught elves, describing the pain and suffering that their kin now endured. Elf Queen Alindra felt a profound sense of helplessness as the magnitude of their predicament became apparent. Turning to her comrades, Elf Queen Alindra saw the reflection of her own anguish mirrored in their eyes. It was not just the trees and soil, now, the elves themselves were being targeted. She spoke to her advisors, her voice heavy with concern and determination. We must find a way to lift this curse from our people. We cannot allow our kin to suffer in such agony, Alindra spoke resolutely. She further added, broadcast my order to all the elves to halt them from eating anything that has been plucked from the forest. Elf Queen Alindra's decree rang out across the Dominion as her subjects hurried to spread the message, ensuring that no more of their people consumed the tainted fruits from the forest. The urgency was palpable, and the Elven Kingdom had to focus on containing and solving the crisis that had befallen them. Meanwhile, in Selena's chamber, Wang Jian and his concubine were engaged in a heated exchange. Selena's frustration was evident as she confronted Wang Jian, her gaze narrowed. Why did you break your promise not to harm the elves? She asked, her voice tinged with annoyance. She had hoped that their agreement would spare her people from suffering. Wang Jian, his arm slyly encircling Selena's thin waist as they spoke, chuckled darkly. My sweet Selena, I haven't broken our promise. I promised not to kill them, and they won't die. They'll only have to endure a little pain. As his hands wandered over Selena's body, her annoyance began to wane, replaced by desire and longing. Her moans filled the chamber as she arched against him, her resistance fading. She whispered back, her voice breathless with need, I'm holding you to your promise, master. Don't harm my people. Wang Jian chuckled darkly as he whispered in her ears, aren't you getting a bit brazen by talking to your master in such a demanding tone? Looks like you need to be punished again. As he uttered those words, Wang Jian's hands grabbed hold of Selena's curvy butt and smacked it strongly. Wang Jian's dark chuckle sent shivers of desire through Selena. She knew that her defiance would likely be met with consequences, and she couldn't deny the thrill of such punishment. As his hands gripped her curvaceous buttocks and smacked them forcefully, she gasped and moaned in response. The pain and pleasure mixed together, driving her further into the depths of submission. Yes, master, she whimpered, her body arching to present herself even more. I've been bad. Punish me. As they indulged in their intimate play, not a single elf had perished from the curse. They were suffering, feeling the torment of the incineration energy coursing through their bodies. Wang Jian remained safe in Selena's chamber. This was because of Selena's ability to sense any approaching elves. In case someone appeared, Wang Jian could swiftly escape by utilizing the shadow spatial portal embedded within her bracelet. Once there were no one in her chamber, Selena could infuse that bracelet with her qi to send a signal directly to Wang Jian that there was no one around her. In this manner, Wang Jian could immediately utilize his spatial ability to warp in front of her. Anyway, Wang Jian had a good reason of staying in Selena's chamber right now. This was because he was a little unsure of the results of his poison. Only while being inside the Elven Dominion could he find how the poison was working on the enchanted forest and even on the world tree. Until now, it was working amazingly. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Elven Dominion, Elf Queen Alindra and her experts were using all their knowledge, abilities, and even their precious resources to combat the relentless incinerating energy and curse that plagued their enchanted forest. They employed a wide array of rare resources, each with unique abilities and properties, but the malevolent energy proved to be an insidious adversary. Elf Queen Alindra, with her blonde hair and blue eyes, stood at the forefront, her elegant features etched with determination. She consulted her council of experts, including scholars, healers, and elemental masters. Their attempts to counter the incinerating energy proved futile, as this sinister force possessed the ability to merge seamlessly with any herb or substance they used to target it. One of the elven scholars, known for his extensive knowledge of botany, attempted to employ the unique properties of the everbloom orchid, a rare and potent herb known to restore vitality and mend injuries. However, even the everbloom orchid proved powerless against the relentless incinerating curse. It withered in his hand, its once vibrant colors fading to ashen gray as it failed to counteract the malevolent energy. A group of elven elemental masters tried to utilize their control over water and ice to extinguish the incinerating energy, but it only flared with greater intensity in response. The frigid attacks of the masters turned to steam, their powers rendered ineffective. The healers, well-versed in the art of mending wounds and curing ailments, combined their skills and invoked ancient healing rituals. Yet, their efforts merely slowed the progression of the curse but couldn't eradicate it completely. Elf Queen Alindra's frustration deepened as she watched her most knowledgeable experts fall short. The malevolent incinerating energy appeared to adapt and resist any attempts to counter it, and even their extensive knowledge of rare resources and their elemental mastery proved inadequate. Amid the turmoil within the enchanted forest, a group of elven scouts arrived at the heart of the forest where Elf Queen Alindra was overseeing efforts to contain the incinerating curse. The lead scout, with an air of urgency, approached the queen and her council of experts. "Your Majesty," the scout said with a respectful bow, "a group of humans has approached the borders of our enchanting forest. They are waving a white flag, signifying their intention for peace and negotiations." Elf Queen Alindra's delicate features hardened as she absorbed the news. The timing of this human delegation was suspicious, to say the least. It was hard to dismiss the possibility that these humans might be connected to the recent devastation in the enchanted forest. Nevertheless, the queen knew that her responsibility extended beyond her doubts and suspicions. She had to consider the well-being of her people and the forest that was now afflicted by a malevolent energy. As frustrating as it was, she had to entertain the possibility of negotiation. With a furrowed brow, she gave the order, "Prepare my spirit projection ring. I shall personally speak with these humans and hear what they have to say." The council of elven experts and scholars nodded in agreement, their expressions mirroring the queen's mix of concern and apprehension. The spirit projection ring was quickly retrieved, a delicate and ornate artifact that allowed her to communicate with others from a distance. Elf Queen Alindra slipped the ring onto her finger, her blue eyes alight with determination, and prepared to engage in negotiations with the humans who had ventured to their borders during a time of crisis. Kong Huiyan, Wang Jian's first concubine, led the group of humans who had come to negotiate with the elves. Their arrival was met with a mix of curiosity and suspicion from the elven scouts guarding the forest's borders. These humans, dressed in dark, elegant robes, looked out of place in the serene surroundings of the enchanted forest. As the elves watched with a degree of wariness, a shimmering construct of spiritual energy emerged from the forest. It was the projection of Elf Queen Alindra, who had used her spirit projection ring to engage in the negotiations. Kong Huyen calmly observed the apparition, knowing that this was the ruler they had come to speak with. Queen Alindra's projection regarded Kong Huyen and her team of humans with a mixture of dignity and curiosity. Her voice, carried by the magic of the spirit projection ring, resonated through the air, echoing softly as she addressed them. "I am Elf Queen Alindra, ruler of this enchanted forest. What business do you humans have with us during this troubled time?" Kong Huyen stepped forward, her demeanor confident and her eyes steady as she addressed the queen's projection. "Your Majesty, I am Kong Huyen. We come as emissaries of our ruler, Emperor Wang Jian. We understand that your forest is facing a grave crisis, and we offer a solution that can help alleviate this disaster." Juxtaposed with the tension in the air. 1526. Alindra's anger flared instantly at the audacity of Kong Huyen's words, and her voice dripped with icy. She paused for a moment, her gaze unwavering. "Naturally, this assistance shall have its price. The price would be the Fountain of Essence. FIDDEU UPTS on NOV/E/LN.com." As Kong Huyen calmly presented her proposition regarding the Fountain of Essence, Elf Queen Alindra's projection grew tense. The serene, natural beauty that surrounded them was starkly juxtaposed with the tension in the air. Alindra's anger flared instantly at the audacity of Kong Huyen's words, and her voice dripped with icy disdain as she responded. "How do you know that our forest faces disaster?" The queen's blue eyes locked onto Kong Huyen's spirit, demanding an answer. Kong Huyen's face remained impassive, and she responded to Alindra's outrage with a calm that could only be described as unsettling. "Your Majesty, we understand your anger, but it is only natural that we know of your forest's plight. It was the empire of Emperor Wang Jian that crafted the poison that has afflicted your dominion." Alindra's anger flared further, her projection growing brighter as she shouted, "You admit to this despicable act. You have caused pain and suffering to my people, and now you have the audacity to make demands?" Kong Huyen's sly smile persisted, and she nodded. "Indeed, we have caused this disturbance, and we are willing to resolve this if you hand over the Fountain of Essence." At this point, the Elf Queen's patience wore thin, and she lunged forward with a surge of spiritual power, attempting to attack Kong Huyen. She planned to beat Kong Huyen to the brink of death and then use her to negotiate with her emperor. However, just as her spiritual attack was about to land, a protective barrier of pure qi and spirit enveloped Kong Huyen and her team. The barrier shimmered with azure light and proved to be impenetrable. It was the protective aura of the Azure Spirit Lion, serving as a formidable shield against the Elven Queen's wrath. Elf Queen Alindra could only watch in rage and frustration as her assault was repelled, unable to harm the humans. "Azure Spirit Lion, are you really intent on protecting these humans from my wrath?" Elf Queen Alindra spoke a bit menacingly. In the meantime, the Azure Spirit Lion flared up its power as it responded coldly, "It was your elven race who offended us first by continuously seizing my territory and adding it to your dominion." Through gritted teeth, Alindra seethed, "Very well, even a creature like you dares to insult my elven people. Rest assured, you will face consequences for your actions." Elf Queen Alindra's spiritual construct slowly dissipated. When her ethereal form dispersed entirely, her sapphire eyes snapped open in her chamber. It was time for her to consider the last option available to her. Summoning her trusted advisors, Alindra addressed them with determination in her voice. "Gather all elves, including my daughters, it is time to perform the Verdant Resurgence ritual. We shall awaken the World Tree and harness its mighty power to address this dire crisis." An elf emissary entered Selena's chamber, bearing the message of her mother, Elf Queen Alindra's decision. The eldest princess nodded gravely as she listened to the message. Once the emissary had left, Selena signaled to Wang Jian by tapping on the bracelet, informing him that she was alone and it was safe for him to return. As Wang Jian reappeared in the chamber, Selena shared the news. My mother has decided to perform the Verdant Resurgence ritual. It is a powerful elven ritual that awakens the world tree and harnesses its incredible power. The ritual requires gathering the life force and spiritual energy of all the elves within the forest and offering it to the world tree. In return, the world tree grants the elf queen a single, mighty boon. A boon? What kind of boon? Wang Jian asked rather curiously. Anything that is within the capabilities of the world tree. However, considering the heavy price of that boon, it is very rarely used by the elves, Selena responded grimly. Wang Jian's eyes narrowed upon hearing her words. I see. The setting sun cast a warm, golden hue across the enchanted elven dominion as Selena made her way to the site of the Verdant Resurgence ritual. Her steps were graceful, her long gown rustling softly as she moved. In just a single day, the incineration curse had spread to 10% of the elven population, causing immense suffering and turmoil. The urgency of the situation was clear. If they did not resolve this crisis swiftly, the entire elven dominion would be on the brink of death. As Selena arrived at the ritual site, she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The ritual was an ancient and sacred practice, rarely performed by the elves due to its significant cost. Meanwhile, Wang Jian watched the proceedings from a concealed vantage point, curious about the ritual and intrigued by the enigmatic power of the World Tree's boon. He knew he needed to learn more about the World Tree's power and how it would be harnessed. As Elf Queen Alindra arrived at the ritual site, Wang Jian watched with rapt attention, marveling at her beauty. Her ethereal, otherworldly appearance took his breath away. Her flowing blonde hair and piercing blue eyes were enchanting, but it was her seductive allure that drew his attention the most. A wicked and depraved smile curled on his lips as he decided that he would make Elf Queen Alindra his own, no matter what it took. The lust in his eyes burned as he imagined her beneath him, succumbing to his desires. Meanwhile, the beautiful elves gathered at the ritual site, dressed in elegant and intricate gowns that accentuated their ethereal grace. Elf Queen Alindra stood at the center, flanked by her daughters, who radiated a similar otherworldly beauty. The rest of the elven dominion's important members, followed by the regular elves, took their positions in the elaborate ritual formation. The ritual began with a melodic chant, the elves' voices weaving through the air like a song of nature itself. The atmosphere grew charged with energy as the participants invoked the life force and spiritual energy that flowed through their veins. Wang Jian could sense the immense vitality and spiritual energy radiating from the bodies of the elves. It was a palpable force, a testament to the elves' deep connection with their enchanted forest and the world tree. As the ceremony continued, Elf Queen Alindra's voice rose above the rest. Her chants carried a unique power, resonating with the ancient magic of the world tree. Wang Jian observed curiously as the ritual reached its zenith. The energy swirling around the participants intensified, and a radiant, emerald glow enveloped the entire area. The verdant light emanated from the world tree itself, responding to the elves' call. The power of the elves' collective offering began to flow toward Elf Queen Alindra, who stood at the center of the ritual. It was a sight of breathtaking beauty. Elf Queen Alindra, surrounded by the radiant light, uttered her wish with a determined voice. I wish for the world tree's protection to cleanse our forest of the incinerating curse and to ensure that it can never harm our people or our enchanted forest again. As her words hung in the air, the mysterious energy from the world tree spread like a tide across the entire elven dominion. It flowed through the enchanted forest, purifying the land and the elves who dwelled within it. The incinerating poison Wang Jian had developed was not merely dispelled, it was eradicated from the very essence of the elven dominion. The enchanting forest and all its inhabitants developed an immunity to not only the specific curse that had plagued them but also to poisons of a similar category. It was as if the World Tree had bestowed upon them an impenetrable shield of purity and protection. However, Wang Jian was not solely focused on the immediate results of the ritual. His keen eyes narrowed as he recognized that the mysterious energy granted by the World Tree to Elf Queen Alindra bore a striking similarity to the energy provided by his system. This revelation held the promise of incredible possibilities, and Wang Jian knew that he had uncovered a secret that could prove invaluable in his future endeavors. As the ritual concluded and the radiant energy began to subside, the elves who had gathered for the ceremony looked upon their queen in awe and gratitude. Their forest was cleansed, their people saved, and the incinerating curse eradicated. The World Tree had granted their wish, and they were filled with a profound sense of relief and reverence. Elf Queen Alindra, along with her daughters, fell unconscious as the ritual concluded, their figures serene amidst the vibrant light that still enveloped them. The members of the elven race who were conscious acted swiftly, gently gathering their beloved queen and her daughters. With care and reverence, they transported them to the Pearl Spring, a sacred pool known for its healing properties. The water of the Pearl Spring possessed unique restorative abilities, capable of mending various wounds and ailments. However, even this remarkable spring had its limits. While it helped to mend the queen and her daughters, it couldn't completely restore their health. The reason for this incomplete healing became clear: it was the price the royal family of the elves paid for invoking the Verdant Resurgence ritual. Their life force had been offered to the World Tree in exchange for the boon, leaving them weakened and vulnerable. Elves, blessed with a greater life force than humans and deeply connected to the natural world, enjoyed an extended lifespan, which mitigated the consequences of the ritual to some extent. Still, it was evident that the sacrifice had taken a toll on the queen and her daughters. Wang Jian observed this development with a growing sense of realization. As the queen and her daughters lay unconscious, he understood that he now possessed an unparalleled advantage. No single individual within the elven dominion could challenge or harm him, even if they discovered his presence. With this newfound freedom, Wang Jian decided to utilize his qi and other abilities to their full extent. The first action he took was to extend his spiritual senses, enveloping the entire area with his awareness. He was curious about the condition of the elves and the state of the elven forest as a whole. To his amazement, he discovered that, just as Elf Queen Alindra had wished, all the afflicted trees within the forest had made a complete recovery. The incinerating curse had been eradicated, and the enchanted forest was restored to its former glory. Even the afflicted elves had made a complete recovery. However, Wang Jian's keen senses detected another peculiar development. The protective barrier that had previously prevented him from reaching the World Tree had weakened significantly. It was a revelation that held immense significance, and Wang Jian knew that it was an opportunity he couldn't afford to ignore. With newfound excitement, Wang Jian made his way swiftly through the enchanted forest, heading directly toward the World Tree. Unbeknownst to Elf Queen Alindra, her decision to invoke the World Tree's power through the Verdant Resurgence ritual had unintended consequences. While she had successfully eradicated the threat of the incinerating curse, the very method she had employed had pushed her people closer to submitting themselves to Wang Jian. Wang Jian approached the invisible barrier that had previously prevented him from getting closer to the World Tree. With a surge of qi and his solar flames, he shattered the barrier. The sheer force he employed created a deafening commotion that reverberated through the enchanted forest, startling the nearby elves who sensed the disturbance. Elves who were within the vicinity swiftly rushed towards the source of the disturbance, alarmed by the unusual occurrence. Their expressions reflected a mix of curiosity and concern. However, by the time they arrived at the scene, the barrier had already reconstructed itself, barring their entry once more. Their attempts to cross the boundary proved futile, as the protective enchantment held strong. As Wang Jian approached the World Tree, he couldn't help but marvel at its grandeur. The colossal tree stood as a testament to the power of nature and magic, its immense roots delving deep into the earth. The vibrant green leaves rustled with a soothing breeze, and the golden sap that flowed through its trunk shimmered with an otherworldly radiance. As he drew nearer, Wang Jian was met with a sight that took him by surprise. A young woman, her hair a vibrant shade of green, appeared before him, her form ethereal and her presence an embodiment of nature itself. F0 Low New Hapters at NOV/EL/BIN/.com. This was a druid, a spirit closely connected to the world tree and the magical essence of the enchanted forest. The druid, a spirit of nature, manifested as a green-haired young woman, had an air of innocence about her as she approached Wang Jian near the world tree. Her emerald eyes sparkled with curiosity, and she tilted her head, a childlike wonder in her gaze. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice carrying a melodic tone, as she gazed at Wang Jian with genuine interest. Wang Jian regarded her coolly, his features masked by an air of indifference. "I'm here to take away the Fountain of Essence," he stated matter-of-factly, making no attempt to hide his intentions. The druid's expression fell, and a subtle frown appeared on her face. "The Fountain of Essence is exceptionally important to the world tree," she said, her voice filled with concern. "It's not something that can be taken lightly." Wang Jian's calm expression remained unshaken, and he stubbornly repeated, "I want the Fountain of Essence." The druid took a step closer to Wang Jian, her green hair shimmering like leaves in the wind. She began to explain, her voice gentle yet urgent, "You need to understand the significance of the Fountain of Essence. At this very moment, the world tree is the one maintaining the barrier around our world, the Sky Martial Continent. This barrier prevents experts and otherworldly beings from entering our realm." Wang Jian listened intently, though his expression remained stoic. The druid continued, "In the ancient era, when the Sky Martial Continent was plagued by wars and battles with otherworldly beings, the elf queen of that time sought a boon from the world tree. She asked the world tree to establish a barrier that would safeguard our world from intruders." As she spoke, the druid's voice carried the weight of history. The world tree granted her wish. For centuries, the barrier stood strong, shielding our world from the threats of other realms. But as time passed, the people of the Sky Martial Continent forgot the danger that once loomed over them. Some even desired greater challenges, yearning to battle even stronger foes. Her eyes took on a distant, pensive look. One of these individuals was the first patriarch of the heavenly Azura Devil clan. Nearly 10 peak Immortal Realm experts launched an attack on the world tree, intending to shatter the barrier and invade our realm. They encountered powerful resistance from our people. Wang Jian's gaze remained unwavering as he absorbed the story. The druid's voice grew solemn. In a desperate attempt to destroy the world tree, the first patriarch sacrificed his own life, launching a devastating attack. It severely wounded the world tree and endangered our dominion. At that moment, the elf queen of that era made a difficult decision. She broke the heaven vein of the world tree elven dominion and transferred all its power into an artifact, the Fountain of Essence. This artifact sustains the world tree and prevents it from falling. Wang Jian listened intently to the druid's words, contemplating the gravity of the situation. The importance of the Fountain of Essence had become clear, and he had to consider his options. After a moment of silent reflection, he turned to the green-haired druid. "If I could heal or sustain the world tree's wound," Wang Jian began, "would you allow me to take the Fountain of Essence?" The druid, taken aback by the unexpected proposal, seemed to hesitate for a moment. Her eyes held a flicker of doubt, but slowly, she nodded her head. "If you truly have the power to mend the world tree's wound and prevent it from falling, then I suppose it would be acceptable." A triumphant smile graced Wang Jian's face as he said, "Lead the way. Show me where the world tree is injured." The druid turned and beckoned for Wang Jian to follow. They had to fly for quite some time, their path taking them higher and higher, closer to the canopy of the immense world tree. As they ascended, the world around them appeared small and insignificant, yet the intensity of the situation grew with every passing moment. The air grew thinner, and the atmosphere became charged with an ancient, mystical energy. Finally, they reached their destination, a spot on the immense trunk of the world tree where a massive, jagged wound had been inflicted. The injury extended deep into the world tree, harming it greatly. The energy within the tree flickered weakly, and its immense presence seemed diminished. As Wang Jian gazed at the wounded world tree, he turned his thoughts inward, mentally addressing the system within his mind. Nully, how many points are required to heal this wound of the world tree? The system's response came quickly. According to the current power of the system, the number of destiny points required to heal this wound of the world tree is 1 billion destiny points. A sly smile played on Wang Jian's lips. His plan was still within reach. Turning his attention to the green-haired druid, he wore a thoughtful expression as he began, "With my current power, I can't heal this wound of the world tree entirely. I can only heal it partially." The druid's emerald eyes widened with disbelief, and she couldn't help but inquire, "You can truly heal the wound of the world tree?" "Indeed," Wang Jian replied with a hint of confidence. He further explained, "Let me demonstrate it to you." With a deliberate motion, he stretched out his hand, silently commanding his system, "Nully, use 1 million destiny points to heal the world tree." The system obediently executed his request. 1 million destiny points were immediately deducted, and an enigmatic power radiated from Wang Jian's palm, flowing toward the wounded world tree. The druid, sensing this mysterious energy, watched in awe. It was the same mystical power that the world tree channeled when granting a boon to the elf queen, a power she had never witnessed in anyone else. This revelation sparked a thought in the druid's mind: Wang Jian might be a sacred entity, akin to the world tree itself. The ethereal energy from Wang Jian's palm began to mend the world tree's wound, albeit imperceptibly to the naked eye. However, the druid could sense the subtle transformation. The world tree had indeed healed, if only slightly. It was undeniable proof of Wang Jian's genuine abilities. All the thoughts racing through the druid's mind had been expertly anticipated by Wang Jian. This was precisely why he chose to expend 1 million destiny points. He sought the druid's respect, understanding the pivotal role she played within the elven dominion. He understood that while the elf queen held immense respect, power, and influence over the elves in the enchanted forest, it was the druid who commanded the respect of the elf queen herself. He believed that any command issued by the druid would be followed by the elf queen without question. Thus, Wang Jian knew that if he aimed to conquer the entire elven race and make them submit to his rule, he needed to start by earning the respect and trust of this druid. His plan was unfolding just as he had envisioned. The druid, her eyes now filled with excitement, leaned closer to Wang Jian. "If you're willing to take the oath that you will help heal the world tree once every year," she proposed with an air of anticipation, "I can permit you to take the fountain of essence." Wang Jian furrowed his brows in contemplation, his mind racing as he weighed the consequences of such an oath. After a brief pause, he put forth a condition of his own, his voice cool and unyielding. "I will agree to this oath under one condition," he stated, his eyes locked with the druid's. The druid frowned, her curiosity giving way to concern. "And what is your condition?" she inquired. Wang Jian's tone remained calm, but there was an underlying hint of menace as he replied, "You must grant me authority over the elf queen and all of her elves." The druid's frown deepened, and she shook her head slowly. "I cannot do that," she said, her voice reflecting her inherent sense of virtue. "I cannot force the elves to submit to your authority without their consent." Wang Jian, however, remained eerily calm. In a tone as cool as the wind rustling through the leaves, he subtly threatened, "If you don't agree, I can just as easily worsen the condition of the world tree." The druid's eyes widened with fear as the implications of Wang Jian's words settled in. The well-being of the world tree was paramount to her, and the thought of its further deterioration terrified her. La test novls on, n, vel by slash, dot, co. She hesitated for a moment before finally nodding in reluctant agreement. Very well, she conceded, her voice trembling. I will agree to your condition. A wicked and depraved smile tugged at the corners of Wang Jian's lips as the oath was formed. He couldn't help but think of the elf Queen Alindra's buxom body, her golden hair cascading like a waterfall, and her piercing blue eyes. The future seemed promising indeed. With the oath sealed, the druid led Wang Jian to the Fountain of Essence. The druid, her eyes a mix of trepidation and resignation, gestured for Wang Jian to follow her. Together, they moved away from the towering world tree, heading towards a path that seemed unassuming at first glance. As they walked, the forest around them seemed to come alive with an ancient energy, the very life force that pulsed through the world tree. The path they were on, although hidden from plain view, appeared as a well-worn trail, etched by centuries of footsteps. The druid's voice was hushed as she explained, the Fountain of Essence is not visible from here. It lies beneath the world tree, connected to its roots. To reach it, we must descend underground, into the heart of the tree. Wang Jian followed her silently, his mind abuzz with anticipation. The path gradually inclined downward, and they entered a tunnel that led them into the depths of the earth. The walls were lined with gnarled roots, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and age-old magic. As they ventured deeper, the passage widened, revealing a vast underground chamber. In the center of the chamber, the roots of the world tree intertwined, forming a lattice that cradled a shimmering pool of water. The Fountain of Essence. The pool glowed with a radiant light, casting ethereal reflections across the chamber's walls. It was the very essence of life, a source of energy that sustained the world tree and, by extension, the entire elven dominion. The druid spoke softly, her voice filled with reverence. Here it is, the Fountain of Essence. Wang Jian stood in awe of the breathtaking sight before him. Wang Jian stepped forward, approaching the Fountain of Essence with a sense of determination. He extended one finger and gingerly dipped it into the shimmering pool. The moment his fingertip made contact with the liquid, he felt a powerful energy, much like the essence coursing through his system. As his fingertip made contact with the Fountain of Essence, a prompt from the system appeared in Wang Jian's mind. Does host wish to absorb this Fountain of Essence? Without hesitation, Wang Jian replied with a resolute yes within his mind. The power of the Fountain of Essence surged into Wang Jian's body with a remarkable speed. The ethereal energy flowed through him, blending seamlessly with the innate strength of his system. It was a merging of power that promised to be monumental. The druid, her eyes filled with awe and wonder, watched the events unfold before her. She had never imagined that someone other than the world tree itself could handle the potent energy within the Fountain of Essence. Wang Jian, standing before her, was defying all expectations and norms. As Wang Jian absorbed the energy, the world tree, no longer connected to its life source, let out a low hum and began to tremble. Its roots, which had previously cradled the Fountain of Essence, now hung loose and disconnected. The entire elven dominion residing within the enchanted forest felt the tremors and was filled with anxiety. The world tree was their lifeline, and its distress was felt by all. The elf queen, unconscious at this moment, could not investigate the cause of the tree's turmoil. Wang Jian, having absorbed the fountain's power, turned his attention to the trembling roots. With a decisive thought, he ordered the system use 1,000,000 points and heal the world tree as much as possible. Now that he had harnessed the might of the Fountain of Essence, the effectiveness of his healing was multiplied tenfold. The world tree's wound would be mended by 1%, a percentage that held immense significance. Each percentage would ensure the world tree's well-being for tens of thousands of years. Ariad updated stirise at n//vel/. As the healing energy flowed from Wang Jian's outstretched hand, he turned to see the druid treating him with reverence. She seemed to be bowing in his direction, her respect evident in her every gesture. The once innocent spirit of nature now regarded him as a being of extraordinary power and importance. As Wang Jian completed the healing process, his mind buzzed with multiple responses from his system. Congratulations, host. You have absorbed the fountain of essence. The price of everything in the system has been reduced to 1/10. Congratulations, host. You have gained a new ability. This is the ability of creation. The realization of these newfound abilities filled Wang Jian with a sense of exhilaration. The potential for his powers had expanded exponentially. He could feel the energy coursing through him, vibrant and potent. Using the ability of creation, the host can create a natural heavenly treasure depending on your insights of an element along with your power. The ability of creation also allows you to empower artifacts and array formations. This ability also allows you to impart vitality to living beings. The limits of your ability to impart vitality depend on your power and cultivation. The descriptions of his newfound powers echoed in Wang Jian's mind. The world around him seemed to take on new dimensions as he pondered the possibilities. He had become a master of creation, capable of shaping and enhancing the elements, imbuing life and strength where it was needed. With the fountain of essence now integrated into his being, Wang Jian felt a sense of invincibility that coursed through him. Wang Jian, with a sly grin on his face, turned to the druid and commanded, "Druid, summon the elf queen Alindra here." The druid, treating Wang Jian's words as divine edicts, nodded with alacrity. She extended her arms, her fingers splaying in a graceful pattern. With a whispered incantation, she tapped into her control over the divine tree elven dominion, channeling the power to teleport Elf Queen Alindra's unconscious body into the chamber. Elf Queen Alindra had fallen into unconsciousness due to the significant loss of vitality she had incurred during the activation of the ritual and the utilization of the World Tree's boon to protect the elves from a grave threat. Fortunately, Wang Jian now held the solution to her condition. He tapped into his newfound ability of creation, channeling its power with a focus on the Elf Queen. The energy flowed from his fingertips, enveloping Alindra in a radiant aura. As the vitality and life force flowed into Elf Queen Alindra, her form began to regain its vigor. Her features, once pallid, began to flush with life. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered, and her eyes opened. Elf Queen Alindra slowly stirred, her eyelids fluttering open as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. Her vision cleared, and she found herself in the chamber where the Fountain of Essence was placed. It was a sight she knew well, for it was the heart of the World Tree Elven Dominion. Her initial confusion gave way to recognition. Her gaze fell upon the green-haired druid, and a wave of relief washed over her. The druid had always been the guardian of the World Tree Elven Dominion, a comforting presence in these sacred surroundings. However, her eyes widened in alarm as they landed on Wang Jian, who stood confidently in the chamber. She remembered him, the human who had abducted her daughter, Selena. A potent cocktail of emotions coursed through her: anger, hatred, and a fierce determination to protect her people from this perceived threat. Elf Queen Alindra couldn't contain her emotions. She stood up abruptly, her regal demeanor giving way to unbridled fury. She addressed the druid, her voice filled with outrage. "What is he doing here? Why is this human in our sacred chamber?" The druid, who held a higher status within the World Tree Elven Dominion, responded calmly, acknowledging the Elf Queen by her name, "Alindra, this human is our benefactor. He possesses the ability to heal the World Tree." The Elf Queen's expression wavered between incredulity and anger. She had been unconscious, and this turn of events left her confused. "Benefactor?" she muttered, her tone skeptical. "How can a human be a benefactor to our kind, especially after what he did to my daughter?" The druid remained composed, her voice steady as she explained, "Elindra, he has used his newfound powers to heal the world tree and mend its wounds. In exchange for his aid, I have taken an oath that allows him to hold authority over the elves." The druid added with a serious tone, "This is the least the elves can do to return the favor of the world tree for all the times it has protected your race and even shared its power with you all." Elf Queen Elindra's grip on her emotions tightened, her jaw clenching in frustration. The bitterness of the situation was not lost on her, but her sense of duty prevailed. She nodded slowly, acknowledging the druid's words. The druid's eyes sparkled with approval, and she offered a serene smile. "Good. I knew you would understand," she said, her tone carrying a hint of relief. Wang Jian took a step forward towards Elf Queen Elindra, a sly grin on his face. His eyes were locked onto her, but not with the reverence or respect one might expect. Instead, they held a greedy and lustful gleam as they hungrily roved over her form, lingering on her buxom and seductive figure. His intentions were far from honorable, and the sinister aura that enveloped him was unmistakable. Wang Jian's eyes gleamed with delight as he took in the sight of Elindra's curvaceous form, her breasts heaving with anger and her ass swaying seductively as she glared at him. He could feel the tension in the air, the palpable hatred emanating from her. It only served to heighten his arousal. With a sly smile, he reached out and grasped her wrist, pulling her roughly towards him. She struggled against his grip, but he was too strong for her. He pulled her roughly onto the bed, pinning her down with his weight. Her breasts pressed against his chest, her face inches from his. "You hate me, don't you?" he whispered, his voice low and menacing. Elindra glared up at him, her eyes blazing with fury. "I despise you," she spat out. Wang Jian chuckled darkly. "I know. And that only makes this more fun." He leaned down and captured her lips in a rough, possessive kiss. She tried to push him away, but he was relentless. His tongue invaded her mouth, coaxing a moan from her lips. As he kissed her, his hands roamed over her body, squeezing and caressing her curves. He pinched her nipples through the fabric of her dress, eliciting a sharp gasp from her. He tore at the fabric, revealing her breasts to his greedy eyes. They were even more magnificent than he had imagined, large, firm, and perfectly shaped. He took one nipple between his lips, sucking and nibbling on it. Elindra cried out in pain and pleasure, her body arching upwards. Wang Jian continued to assault her breasts, taking turns sucking and biting on each nipple. By now, Elindra was panting and squirming beneath him. He could feel her body trembling with arousal. The druid who had been observing the scene disappeared in a flash of light, leaving Wang Jian and Elindra alone in the dark chamber. Once the druid disappeared from the chamber, Elindra began to resist Wang Jian's sexual assault. "How dare you?" she spat, struggling against his grip. "Let me go this instant." Wang Jian chuckled darkly. "Oh, I don't think so. You're mine now." Elindra's eyes widened in horror as he pulled out his cock, its length and girth surprising her. She had never seen such a thing before. Elves had never had sex, and she had certainly never seen a cock. It looked like an ugly, grotesque thing to her. "What is that?" she gasped, her voice filled with disgust. "It's what I'm going to use to claim you," he replied, his voice low and menacing. Elindra tried to pull away, but he was too strong for her. He forced her down onto the ground, pinning her beneath him. He positioned himself between her legs, his cock pressing against her wet folds. Elindra struggled and cried out as he pushed forward, finally penetrating her virgin body. She could feel the head of his cock stretching her, filling her completely. "No," she sobbed. "Please, stop." But Wang Jian was relentless. He pushed forward, forcing his cock into her virgin cunt. Elindra screamed in pain and disgust as he violated her body. Tears streamed down her face as he began to pump his hips, thrusting in and out of her. "Stop! Please, stop," she begged, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It hurts." Wang Jian simply chuckled and began to slowly thrust into her, the head of his cock rubbing against her entrance with each thrust. "You'll get used to it," he whispered. "Just relax and enjoy the ride." Alindra cried out in pain as he continued to take her, her body quivering with each hard thrust. She could feel his cock stretching her further, filling her completely. With each movement, he rubbed against her clit, bringing her closer and closer to orgasm. Wang Jian increased his pace, pounding into her harder and faster. Alindra cried out in pain, her body trembling under his assault. But still, he continued, grunting with each forceful thrust. "Please, stop," she begged again, her voice breaking. "I can't take any more." But Wang Jian was not listening. He continued to take her, claiming her body as his own. Alindra's screams turned to sobs as he ravaged her, his cock sliding in and out of her tight passage. She hated him, but she could not deny the pleasure that was building within her. As he fucked her, Wang Jian reveled in her helplessness. He knew that this was only the beginning, that he would have her again and again, breaking her will and claiming her as his own. And then, suddenly, she felt it, the pleasure overwhelming her, flooding her body with a rush of ecstasy. Alindra cried out in surprise as her orgasm ripped through her, racking her body with tremors of pleasure. Wang Jian continued to thrust into her, milking her climax as she came undone. When the orgasm finally subsided, Alindra collapsed back onto the bed, panting heavily. Wang Jian slowly pulled out of her, his cock still dripping with her juices. He leaned down and kissed her tenderly, his lips warm against hers. "You see," he whispered. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" Alindra glared up at him, her eyes still flashing with anger. But she could feel the stirrings of arousal within her, a strange new desire that had been awakened. "You won't win," she hissed. "I will never submit to you." Wang Jian chuckled darkly. "Oh, but you will, my dear. You just don't know it yet." He pulled her roughly onto her stomach and spread her legs wide. She tried to resist, but he was too strong. He positioned himself between her legs once more, his cock throbbing against her entrance. "No," she begged, trying to pull away. "Please, stop." But Wang Jian was relentless. He thrust into her roughly, claiming her again. Alindra cried out in pain as he pounded into her, stretching her tight passage once more. She could feel his cock rubbing against her G-spot, bringing her closer to another orgasm. "Stop," she screamed. "I can't take any more." But Wang Jian was determined. He increased his pace, slamming into her over and over again. Alindra cried out in agony, her body shaking with the force of his assault. But still, he continued, grunting with each brutal thrust. And then, just as before, the pleasure overwhelmed her, a wave of ecstasy crashing through her body, taking her breath away. Wang Jian reached down and smacked her rear end, making it jiggle enticingly. "You like it when I use you as my personal fuck slave, don't you?" he growled. Alindra let out another moan, her cries of pleasure melding with the words her mouth formed. "Please, more." She stammered, her mouth unable to form coherent thoughts as the onslaught of pleasure consumed her being. Wang Jian grinned deviously. "From now on, you'll be my personal fuck slave. You live to serve my cock, to take my spunk, to be subjugated by my power." Alindra's eyes lit up with desire as more pleasure washed over her. "Yes. Yes. Please. More." Wang Jian chuckled darkly and increased the pace of his thrusting, pounding into Alindra with cruel force. She cried out in ecstasy with each stroke as she tumbled over the edge and into another mind-altering orgasm. When the earth-shattering shudders subsided and Alindra managed to catch her breath again, Wang Jian glared down at her lust-filled eyes, his cock still spasming within her sex. "From now on, you will be exclusively mine. You answer only to me. You will do anything I want as long as it pleases me. Have I made myself clear, my little fuck pet?" Alindra nodded her head fervently, her lips still stained with his spunk. "Yes, my lord," she moaned, her voice thick with lust. "I live to serve your cock." Wang Jian grinned deviously. "Good girl," he growled. "Now, let's see how many more times I can make you come." With that, he began pounding into her once more, each thrust driving his cock deeper and harder into Alindra's tight, clenching channel. She moaned loudly as the sensation of fullness consumed her, her hips bucking against Wang Jian's onslaught. He pulled her back down onto his cock, impaling her deeply once more. Alindra let out a cry of pain mixed with pleasure, her body still recovering from the onslaught of the previous rounds. But Wang Jian showed no mercy, increasing the pace of his thrusting as he claimed Alindra's body once more. Alindra let out a sharp gasp as Wang Jian slammed into her, her clit brushing against his pelvis with each hard stroke. She felt herself begin to build towards another orgasm, the sensation of fullness and pleasure driving her ever closer to release. "Please, more," she moaned, her eyes fluttering shut as the pleasure overwhelmed her. Up.dfrm no/v/e/lb/i n.co/m. Wang Jian increased his pace, slamming into her over and over again. Alindra cried out in agony, her body shaking with the force of his assault. But still, he continued, grunting with each brutal thrust. And then, just as before, the pleasure overwhelmed her, a wave of ecstasy crashing through her body, taking her breath away. Alindra cried out in pleasure as she came undone once more, her body convulsing with the force of her orgasm. Wang Jian continued to pound into her, claiming her body as his own. Alindra could feel her orgasms building within her, each one stronger than the last. She cried out in pleasure as she was brought to the brink of orgasm again and again, her body quaking with the force of her climaxes. Finally, when she could take no more, Wang Jian pulled out of her, his cock still dripping with her juices. He leaned down and kissed her tenderly, his lips warm against hers. Wang Jian and Alindra woke up the next day, the events of the previous night still fresh in their minds. As they lay there, Wang Jian turned to Alindra with a sly grin on his face. "I must say, my dear," he began, his voice oozing with satisfaction, "I had an amazing time with you last night." Alindra, her expression a mix of anger and frustration, glared at him. "You despicable human," she hissed. "How could you defile me in such a way?" Wang Jian chuckled darkly. "Get used to it, my dear. You belong to me now, and there's nothing you can do about it." Alindra's fury burned within her, but then she noticed something peculiar. She felt a newfound surge of energy coursing through her, and her body felt revitalized. The vitality she had lost due to the verdant resurgence ritual had been miraculously restored after her intimate night with Wang Jian. She was shocked by the unexpected benefit of her encounter with him. Wang Jian's sly grin deepened as he gazed into Alindra's eyes. He leaned in closer, his lips brushing against her ear as he whispered, "You know, my dear elf queen, I have the power to completely heal and restore the life force of the elves who lost their vitality during the verdant resurgence ritual." Alindra's breath caught as she listened to his words, and her body shivered as his fingers lightly traced along her curves. He pulled her closer, reveling in the sensation of her seductive form pressed against him. With a wicked smile, he continued, "But, my sweet Alindra, there's a condition. You must completely obey my orders, without hesitation, without question." Alindra's body trembled under his touch, her desire and arousal growing with each passing moment. She hesitated for a brief moment before finally speaking, her voice husky with longing. "I will do anything you say, as long as you heal the members of my elven race." It was a thinly veiled excuse for Alindra to give in to her carnal desires and let Wang Jian explore her buxom, seductive body. She craved his touch, and the promise of restoring her people's vitality was the perfect justification for succumbing to her desires. Wang Jian's smile deepened as he heard Alindra's response. He whispered to her, "I'm delighted that we could come to this agreement, my dear." He gently stroked her curvaceous body as he continued, "The first thing I want you to do is to order your elven race to publicly form an alliance with my everlasting mystical empire. Rest assured, the elves will be under my direct control, and no one else from the everlasting mystical empire will interfere with your people." As he spoke, his fingers danced sensuously over Alindra's seductive form, his touch igniting her desire. She shivered with pleasure as his caresses grew more daring, her breath coming in short gasps. "Yes, yes, I will do that." Alindra responded while taking short breaths and letting out moans of pleasure. Wang Jian didn't waste any time. He ordered Alindra to lead him to her elven people, where she would publicly declare the alliance. Though Alindra whimpered slightly, she complied with his orders. Rising from the flowery ground, she walked toward the door, her gait alluring and captivating. As the elf queen, she held herself with grace and dignity, even in this compromising situation. Following her obediently, Wang Jian noticed the sultry sway of her hips, and he couldn't resist placing a hand on her curvaceous behind as they walked. They arrived at a clearing where the elven population had gathered, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern. Many of the elves recognized Wang Jian as the man who had abducted Selena, and whispers and murmurs swept through the crowd. "Why is the elf queen with him? Isn't he the one who abducted our eldest princess Selena?" As the questions and concerns grew louder, all eyes were on Alindra as she prepared to address her people with Wang Jian by her side. Find new Tories on nov/el-bin.com. Elf Queen Alindra took a deep breath, her gaze steady as she faced her people. She raised her voice, addressing the crowd, "My fellow elves, hear me." As she spoke, the whispers and concerns that had been spreading through the gathered crowd hushed momentarily. "This man," she continued, gesturing to Wang Jian, "is our benefactor. He possesses the power and the ability to heal the world tree, our divine entity." Murmurs of surprise and disbelief spread through the crowd. "He has agreed to help heal the world tree," Alindra announced, emphasizing the significance of this gesture. "This is a tremendous favor he extends to our kind, as the world tree has watched over us for centuries." While some elves were still skeptical, others began to nod in understanding. Alindra went on, "In addition to healing the world tree, Wang Jian can also restore the vitality that we lost during the verdant resurgence ritual." Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. A young elf spoke up, "So he's not the enemy? He can help us recover?" Another elf chimed in, "Could it be that our queen has found a way to secure our future?" But there were still those who remained skeptical, one elder elf in particular. "But my queen, is this man truly to be trusted? After what he did to our princess, can we be sure he won't betray us?" Alindra turned to Wang Jian, a meaningful look in her eyes. "He will not betray us. I have received the command of the Druid Spirit, who commands control over the entire World Tree Elven Dominion. From now on, we must listen to Wang Jian's orders." The crowd seemed torn, some elves nodding in acquiescence, while others still wore doubtful expressions. As the elves deliberated, Wang Jian observed the varied reactions of the elven folk, his expression a mix of curiosity and satisfaction. Wang Jian stepped forward, positioning himself next to the elf queen Alindra, the crowd of elves still rife with curiosity, doubt, and a tinge of anger. He took a deep breath and spoke, his voice firm yet conciliatory. "I am indeed the man who once abducted our eldest princess Selena," he admitted, meeting the accusing gazes of the elven crowd. But I want you all to know that she was never harmed, nor tortured. I was merely curious about your magnificent race and sought to learn more. A murmur of disapproval and suspicion washed over the crowd. Some elves exchanged concerned glances. But now, Wang Jian continued, his lips curving into a sly smile, now that we stand together in alliance, you have my word that I will not use my abilities to harm the elves. Instead, you will experience the many advantages of this alliance. His assurance hung in the air, and the elves remained divided, some still harboring reservations while others slowly began to see the potential benefits of this newfound alliance. Wang Jian maintained his composure as he continued addressing the elven crowd. As a gesture of good faith, he announced, I have already recovered the vitality of your beloved Queen Alindra. The elves exchanged glances and gasps of astonishment filled the air. They couldn't believe their ears, and many turned their attention to their queen, Alindra. Wang Jian's gaze then turned sly and seductive as he locked eyes with Elf Queen Alindra. A shiver ran down her spine as she felt the intensity of his stare. She bit her lip and trembled slightly under the heat of his gaze. Swallowing her unease, Alindra nodded in agreement and informed her people, what he says is true. His ability is genuine, and we should trust him. The elves were still skeptical, but the notion that their queen's vitality had been restored was a powerful testament to Wang Jian's capabilities. Some elves began to nod in agreement, and a sense of hope began to spread through the crowd. Wang Jian's smile grew more pronounced as he observed the reaction of the elves. The foundation of their alliance was being laid, and he knew that over time, their trust in him would only grow stronger. Wang Jian, his voice carrying through the clearing, declared, Next, I will heal the princesses of Elven Kingdom. A murmur of anticipation and curiosity ran through the elven crowd. Wang Jian turned to Alindra and spoke to her directly. Elf Queen Alindra, I need you to send the princesses to my chamber for the process. Alindra clenched her fists in anger as she heard his words. She knew exactly what the process entailed, and she couldn't believe that Wang Jian would be so brazen as to ask for her permission in front of the entire elven race. She felt trapped. She wanted her daughters to recover their life force and vitality, but this method was truly too depraved for the members of her pure race. With a forced smile on her face, Alindra nodded in agreement and replied, Very well, Wang Jian. I will talk to the princesses and ensure they are ready for the process. However, Wang Jian seemed to have another plan in mind as he responded with a sly grin, No need. I request you to be present in my chamber and observe the process. On that very same day, all the unconscious princesses of the Elven Kingdom were gathered in a single chamber. Wang Jian, accompanied by Elf Queen Alindra, entered this chamber. All the elves waited outside for the good news. Anyway, as Wang Jian and Alindra entered the chamber, Wang Jian's eyes gleamed with a sly and depraved light. He pulled Alindra into an embrace, his hands roaming her body with a possessive and intimate touch. Alindra let out soft moans and whispered hesitantly, Ah. Are you really going to use that depraved method to heal my daughters? Wang Jian's grin grew wider as he replied, I was thinking about it. It's a simple method that would allow me to have fun while also healing your daughters. Don't you think so? Alindra's face pale, she hesitated for a moment before speaking, Can you please use some other method to heal them? Wang Jian's hands moved nimbly over Alindra's body, his touch sending shivers down her spine. He leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear as he whispered, Perhaps I can think about it. However, only if you willingly reveal our close relationship to them. Alindra's heart raced as she considered Wang Jian's words. She knew that revealing their relationship to her daughters would be a difficult and embarrassing ordeal, but she also knew that she had no choice. She nodded hesitantly, Okay. Wang Jian's grin grew even wider as he leaned in closer to Alindra. Good choice, he whispered, his breath hot against her ear. Now, let's get started. Without another word, Wang Jian began to perform his healing ritual. As Wang Jian began to perform his healing ritual, his hands slowly but surely roamed all over Alindra's body. She could feel his calloused fingers sliding against the soft flesh of her body, and she bit her lip as she let out a small moan of pleasure. Alindra's skin tingled where Wang Jian's touch lingered, sending shivers down her spine. Wang Jian soon spoke casually, "You know, this ritual might take a while. Why don't you make it more enjoyable for both of us?" Alindra gasped, her eyes widening as she felt Wang Jian's hardening length pressing against her. Her mouth opened slightly as Wang Jian pressed her down onto her knees, his hand grasping her head and guiding it towards his growing cock. Alindra whimpered as she began to take Wang Jian's cock into her mouth, her eyes filled with shame and arousal. Wang Jian's fingers tangled in her hair, holding her head firmly in place as she began to suckle on his cock, her tongue dancing across the tip and sliding down his shaft. Wang Jian's hands moved to her hips, pulling her closer to him as she began to suckle on his cock, her lips moving up and down the shaft in a slow rhythm. Alindra moaned around his cock, feeling the shame of performing this act for her daughters, but also the pleasure of having Wang Jian's hard cock in her mouth. Wang Jian's hands roamed over Alindra's body, his fingers sliding against her bare skin as he pulled her closer to him. He whispered in her ear, "Good girl, Alindra. Suck my cock like the whore you are." Alindra moaned louder around his cock, her cheeks hollowing as she took more of his length into her mouth. She could feel Wang Jian's cock throbbing against the back of her throat, and she knew that he was close to coming. Wang Jian pulled Alindra off his cock, his hands grasping her head and pulling her up to meet his gaze. His eyes gleamed with wicked intent as he spoke in a husky whisper. "Now, it's time to heal your daughters." Alindra gasped in shock as Wang Jian released her, his hard and throbbing cock still standing at attention. She knew what this ritual entailed and she felt a sense of shame and arousal course through her body. Wang Jian pulled Alindra towards the slumbering forms of her daughters, his hands gripping her hips firmly. He knelt down and sprayed his cum over 3 of the sleeping princesses, coating their bodies with his seed. Alindra watched in awe as the life force of her daughters began to return, their chests rising and falling as they breathed once more. Tears of joy and relief filled her eyes as she witnessed the miracle before her. What? This is actually so magical? Alindra couldn't help but mutter aloud at this moment. This process will be a lot slower compared to the traditional method of having sex with them. They will need to be sprayed a couple more times before their life force can recover completely. If you don't want me to use their bodies, then work harder, Alindra, Wang Jian spoke with a rather depraved and sly grin. Alindra's eyes filled with determination as she nodded, her voice firm. "I will do whatever it takes to help my daughters." Without another word, Alindra sank to her knees once more. She took Wang Jian's cock into her mouth, her tongue dancing along the shaft as she sucked him. Her fingers moved up and down his thighs, her eyes filled with passion as she bobbed her head up and down his length. Wang Jian groaned, his hips bucking forward as he felt Alindra's mouth fill with his cock. He gripped her head tighter, guiding her up and down his shaft as she sucked on him. Alindra whimpered, her tongue flicking across the tip of his cock as she sucked on him. Wang Jian groaned, his hands gripping her head tighter as he thrust into her mouth. It didn't take long before Wang Jian had sprayed his cum over the 5 elven princesses tens of times, leaving each of them drenched in his seed. The elf queen Alindra's movements became more and more instinctive. She was no longer paying attention to the faces of her daughters or how much they had recovered. Instead, she focused solely on pleasing Wang Jian. It was as if sucking Wang Jian's cock had become a second nature to her. Her actions were now automatic, and she didn't need to think about them. However, amidst this frenzy, one princess began to stir, Selena. She had been drenched with the most of Wang Jian's semen, and as she slowly regained consciousness, she was met with a shocking sight, her beautiful mother, Alindra, kneeling before Wang Jian, her lips wrapped around his throbbing member. Up TED Chapters NN Velben.com The realization that her own mother had been reduced to this submissive state was a jarring one for Selena. But as she watched on, unable to tear her eyes away from the erotic spectacle unfolding before her, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of arousal. The sight of Wang Jian's powerful form dominating her mother, coupled with the heady scent of sex in the air, ignited a fire within Selena. Selena stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "What are you doing to my mother?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Wang Jian pulled Selena closer, his strong hands gripping her hips firmly. He spanked her curvy buttocks hard, leaving a bright red mark on her pale skin. "Your mother is mine now," he growled, his voice deep and commanding. Alindra was shocked as she felt Wang Jian pulling his cock out of her mouth. She felt a wave of distress as she really wanted to suck more of Wang Jian's dick. As she regained some clarity, Alindra noticed her daughter Selena was awake. Waves of guilt and embarrassment washed over Alindra. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, she saw Wang Jian's cock enter her eldest daughter's tight pussy. Selena moaned loudly as she exclaimed excitedly, "Oh yes, I love your cock, master." Alindra's heart sank as she realized what was happening. "Wang Jian," she cried, her voice filled with anger. "What are you doing to my daughter?" Wang Jian turned to face Alindra, his eyes cold and unyielding. He grabbed her breasts roughly, squeezing them tightly before smacking her buttocks 3 times. "I'm punishing you for daring to question me," he snarled. Alindra shouted out, tears streaming down her face. "No! Please, stop!" Wang Jian ignored her pleas, focusing instead on Selena's moans of pleasure. He slammed into her over and over, his powerful body thrusting against hers. Selena's cries grew louder, her body shuddering with each orgasmic spasm. Alindra watched helplessly as her daughter was taken by Wang Jian, her heart breaking with every thrust. As Wang Jian continued to pound into her, Selena let out muffled screams of pleasure that tore at Alindra's soul. In the midst of the chaos, Alindra felt a stirring within her own body. Her pussy grew wet with arousal, her nipples hardening as she watched her daughter being taken by this human. As Wang Jian finally came inside Selena, he pulled out and turned to face Alindra. "Your daughter Selena has been my slave just like you, Alindra, so you do not need to show such a distressed look. It makes me want to torment you even more," Wang Jian spoke rather deviously. Well, that's all for this part, truckers. See you all in the next video.